Welcome everyone to Hack Shack Studios. RT Bear here. I'm going to be hosting a professionals. No, not a professionals. No, not tonight. That's tomorrow. We're gonna do a Pontificators. That's it. A Pontificator show tonight. I got all the usual suspects lined up, so we're gonna get into that, and it's gonna be a fun night. So we have a topic. And the topic is going to be our freelance contracts, like work for hire contracts. Are they justified? Are they just? Are they fair? Are they good? Man, I'm looking at my face right now. I got bit. I was outside. I got bit by mosquitoes. Yeah. So this is. I usually don't host shows late like this. So this is going to be a little different for me. It's going to be fun. We got a sign of life. We got Shoner. Just got notified for this. So clicked. Yes. Good. Ron Shaw. Good evening. Yes. Good evening. Past Master Dan. Good to see you. Leg kick. One. How be you? The green laser. Yes. Yes, indeed. Yeah. We're gonna have a great show for you guys. I got a bunch of people lined up. We have all the usual suspects for Pontificators. I don't think Chester's going to be here tonight, so he will be sorely missed. But we have pretty much everybody else. We're going to have a few extra new people added to the mix, and we're just going to talk. Well, what did I used to say? Talk a subject matter to death is what we are going to do tonight. So Jasper 9, how are you? We got Lord. Was that Raveneer? How are you? Jay, what's that? JG? GJ? GJ Martinez? Dyslexia. Ron Shaw. We got Billy. Billy Basco is in the house. Skip Edwards. You know, it's not a party until Skip Edwards joins in. So how are you guys? So let me do a little bit of business up front. And then I'm going to get the guys on the show here. But I wanted to do this first. We have Chrono Mechanics. We have Chrono Mechanics Retrofit. They do more before the dawn of time than most people do all day. 53,238, 772 backers. Thank you, each and every one of you that have backed. Thanks to everybody for their support. If I could encourage you to tweet this out to let people know that this book is out there and it's still going strong, and also to let you know that if you haven't backed, please do so soon, because at the end of the month we are going to close this campaign down to make room for Black and White Volume 2. So that's going to be our next big campaign. So this is going to be sad to bring this down, but all good things must come to an end. They do more before the dawn of time than most people do all day. They are the Chrono Mechanics. It is a action adventure sci-fi comedy adventure, and it's about Team 9.2 of Sector 7. These four knuckleheads right here, the best of the best to ever punch a time card. These guys are that. And the story will they're gonna break in a new team member, and that's the guy with the guitar right there. That's the D, and we're gonna see how this guy fits into the team, if he even fits into the team. So the link is in the description. There's a bunch of story pages here for you to look at in your spare time. If you like what you see, please back. And the book is done, you guys. This book will go out ASAP. So as soon as we get the orders, they're going out. I think Pamela sent a bunch of books out today, actually. She went to the post office. So we got some books out, and they're coming your way. So one thing I'm saying is if you already have the book, there's still stuff that you can get. You can get the sketchbook, the work in progress sketchbook, which has some of these fantastic pieces of artwork in there. And then we have the variant collections. The variant cover collection. So this is Oot by Sean Cheeks Galloway. This is Doug, the D, by Tom Bancroft. This is Zin by Aaron Lepresti. And this is Caravaggio by Carlo Barberi. So you guys, please come by, check it out. If you like what you see, back a book, and they will be coming your way before you know it. And so the next thing is Black and White Volume 2. So this is the pre-launch sign-up page. So if you guys sign up with a backing, you will get this artwork as a trading card, absolutely free. So this is colors by the great Stefani Renee, Comicsgate's own Stefani Renee, and yeah, he did the cover. He did that piece of artwork, and yeah, so we're gonna have early bird specials. We're gonna have exclusives. We're gonna have all kinds of things, and if you sign up. You sign up now, you will have access to all that stuff earlier than anybody else. So let's watch this video and see what this is all about. Let me turn the sound up. One, two, three, four. Man versus machine, black and white. Yes, indeedy do, man. I can't help but rock out, man. That's the great Red Gaze that put that video together. So thank you so much, Red Gaze. Him and I are working together for the actual Indiegogo site when we put it up. So that video, I got a rough of it the other day. It looks fantastic. So many creative people here at Comicsgate. Chrono Mechanics is the best book I have read in CG, hands down. Holy shit balls. That's amazing. Not ashamed to make that assertion. You are the best, Billy. Billy, the check is in the mail. Check is in the mail. Tom Bancroft, I finally have a favorite Bancroft. Yeah, Tom Bancroft is a legendary Disney animator. Yes. Oh, there's Red Gaze. There he is. I knew you'd be lurking. Let's see. I wasn't aware of Black and White Volume 1, but thanks to this campaign, I'll be able to get Volume 1 and 2. Thanks. No problem, man. Art, the singing drummer. I have a horrible singing voice. It doesn't stop me from trying, though. All right, let me send out an invite to the gang. To the gang. We have our own little Pontificators green room here. Let me do this. Do. Where are you? Holy crap. Where the hell is it? What the Sam Goody is going on here? Oh, there it is. Okay. Boom, 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 ba-boom, ba-boom, bam, 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 boom, ba-boom, ba-boom, bam. All right. So that bit of business is done. I got 3 others to do. This bit of business is done. This bit of business. I have 1 more. I can't leave anybody out. Yeah, I can't wait to see what you guys think of some of the new guys we got in here. So let me double check. I got that. Yes, we should be good. We should be good indeedy do. Yeah, so we got some of the old guys back, the old Pontificators, and we got some new blood in here as well. So we got one of the originals, the original Pontificators. We got Comic Book Bob. How are you?
OG.
You been good?
Yeah, I've been good, man. Just waiting for the day, man. Everything old is new again.
Yes, indeed, you do. So yeah, we got Jason. Jason,
hey,
camera. Be social, Jason.
How are you, buddy?
Good, man. How yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm working and standing at my desk currently. So
you're standing, not sitting.
No, I'm not sitting. I hurt my back a couple days ago, and I was finally able to stand up yesterday. And I got up and I put my back brace on, and I have a hydraulic desk, and thank God. And I raised the thing to about chest height, and I'm able to work while I stand and talk to you guys. And I spent the day talking to doctors about going through some back surgeries and stuff, and finally getting this taken care of so I don't have to deal with it later on down the line.
Well, I hope you're okay. And also, like the freelancer occupational hazard is just back complications. It's so weird to think about it. Like we just sit, but actually sitting for long periods of time is one of the worst things you can do for your spine.
Yeah,
turns out
it's pretty terrible. So, and yeah, I want to work. So, I told the doctor, man, if you could take away the pain, like cut my legs off or something, and just stick me in a wheelchair. I could still draw, and I'm cool with that.
And we'll call you Stumpy Krieger.
Do you think
that would be awesome?
Do you ever think about getting those mesenchymal stem cell injections instead to see if that takes care of the inflammation and everything?
Do they do that in this country yet, or do I have to go somewhere else to do it?
I think they do, because I know the UFC guys have been using it for a while now. So I don't know if I'm not 100% sure, but I think they do.
Yeah, but those guys are breaking major laws doing that.
If Kaiser does it, I will do it. So
it's unfortunate that because of when they banned the fetal stem cell thing, they didn't say like, okay, the other stuff's okay because that's harvested from yourself, or from umbilical blood. They're just kind of like, but
nice. You know what? Here's the thing, my mom still has, almost after 50 years, my umbilical cord dried up in a fucking little envelope, like all the sorry Art.
Yeah.
I cussed.
I don't know. I don't know if they can take it from that. I think they usually take it from the blood from the umbilical cord, but I mean, who knows? I mean, they might be able to.
Well, let's move forward.
sorry, guys. Hey, Todd.
Old men talking about their injuries.
So how are you, Todd Mulrooney, one of the originators, the emancipators, the masturbators, the
good
pontificators? Hey, don't leave hanging. Hey, Todd, don't leave the other
way. Thank you, buddy. I miss you.
Yeah, so this is good, man. This is getting the band back together. This feels right. So next up, we got some new guys. We got some fresh blood. We got Phil Diaz.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, Phil.
That was a rough start there. I was getting depressed.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, Jason had to talk about these are serious issues though, and I can see getting hung up on it. Because if you can't sit up, you can't work.
Yeah.
I remember talking to Scott Williams about it because I bought a new chair and I was going, this is wonderful for my back. And he's going, really? What kind of chair is it? Like, everybody's looking for the miracle back cure in this industry. And so I know exactly how you feel. So let's see how Zach's back is doing. How's your back doing, Zach?
It's doing great, Art.
Zach is back.
Yep. Wait, let me change that. Let me change it. I gotta change it now that you've said that.
You gotta change what? What? We're waiting for something.
My name.
Yeah. We gotta get Zach back to wearing the weird costumes and stuff.
Okay. Well, let me introduce Clint Helinski. While we're here. Yeah, what's up, brother? I'm glad you could make it.
Nothing will get comic book artists more excited about talking about what chair somebody's got, and all of a sudden it's like, I've got this great comfortable chair. Like, what is it? Tell me right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Everybody's like, what? Yeah.
I've spent 20 years sitting in this chair, and it's destroying every part of me. Please let me know a better chair.
Turning your spine into powder.
Yeah, the doctor always says, get up every couple hours. It's like, Yeah, it doesn't help.
You know what that doesn't do? It doesn't finish the page by the deadline, Doc. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Doc. I saw somebody else in here and he disappeared. So you guys, if I'm not going to say his name yet, just in case he doesn't pop back in. But if you guys see somebody pop back in, let me know and I'll click them on.
Ooh, mystery guest.
Ooh, it's like a mystery date. Yes. So I take it we've all been good. It's been too long since we've done one of these pontificators, and it's good to see some new blood in here. Wait, we just lost. Who else did we? We lost Jason. Holy shit.
Bannon.
Is this like Russian roulette?
Maybe it's bad.
Yeah, we're losing them left and right.
The boomer returns.
Yeah. Well, so Todd brought us a great subject, and it's kind of been a big thing on YouTube right now, and the articles are just it's so amazing that this stuff is happening in this day and age, because this used to just be not talked about. Like, people didn't talk about page rates, they didn't talk about royalties, they didn't talk. They didn't even talk amongst themselves in the freelancer community. And now a lot of this stuff is going public. There are creators talking about not getting royalties, getting bad work for hire contracts, things like that. So what we're going to do with Pontificators moving forward is whoever brings the topic to the table will take the lead on the topic. So this was Todd's topic. Oh, we got Jason back in here. So, Todd, you wanna fill us in, and we'll start adding our 2 cents to it.
Sure. This is, like you said, this is a reoccurring thing. It's reoccurred twice in the last 4 years. Obviously, about 4 years ago, or maybe less, it was Jim Starlin, and then recently was Ed Brubaker. And these guys are seeing the things that they created, and this goes beyond just character creation, right? They're seeing the things that they created go up on the screens, whether it's small screen, big screen, whatever. And there is nothing, as far as Marvel goes, there's nothing that's in their contracts that states, if this happens to cross to a different medium, we will give you income in this fashion. They don't have anything, and they have never had anything. Whereas DC has 2 things that are in their contracts. One that states if it crosses over in another medium, you'll receive compensation. The other thing that they have is pure creative. Like, if you created a character purely, you and someone else, whether it's you and a writer or you yourself, you created a character and it gets used and it starts appearing in comics and it gets its own comic. Well, and then if it also has crossover appeal to some of these other things like movies and cartoons and stuff, you'll receive compensation. So Marvel doesn't have this, and the guys are speaking out about it because when they if you read the Ed Brubaker article, he's kind of treated poorly. Like, he didn't get into the screening of the movie. He was put into an overflow theater. He had to beg to go to the after party and he called the actor himself, Sebastian Stan, and said, "Hey, can you get me and so-and-so in?" That's not right. And I've always heard, and I'm not going to say anything disparaging, but Kevin Feige has always been like one of those guys, like a good relationship with people guy, tries to keep everybody happy. And maybe some of these things slip through because he's got to deal with a lot of actors and producers and stuff. So maybe the small guy who actually created Winter Soldier gets left behind. There should be an assistant to this guy who takes care of all those things. So Ed Brubaker has done an interview recently and talked about how Marvel did offer him a sum of money that he turned down. It was so small. And he was so aggravated by it that he said, "Keep it, because that's, you guys are making billions on it, and you're going to give me whatever the amount was. It just wasn't enough to make him happy."
Yeah, basically money to shut up.
Yeah. And that's what they call it in the industry. They call it shut up money. It's because they term it as like a gift. Like, we're going to gift you this for your hard work. And
well, the thing is, it's like I'm really glad in a way that that the creative people are doing this now. So like Ed Brubaker and Jim Starlin, and too bad like this came really late for people like Jack Kirby and Siegel and Schuster and people like that. But even people like, and just to kind of back up to give you guys kind of a context of where we're coming from, is that companies like Marvel and DC, even if you create stuff for their companies, you don't necessarily get royalties. You don't get compensation for them. So you could create stuff like the Winter Soldier or Thanos or, a Venom in the case of, Todd McFarlane. So these creators are getting some kind of, it's not really a royalty. Marvel doesn't call them royalties. They're incentives, or they're like, I forget their wording, but they're not kind of legal binding contracts. They're kind of like, if we want to, like a performance bonus, if you will, for these type of things. And if it's made into anything, then we'll have some profit sharing. But none of it's guaranteed that it's going to happen. And even people like Stan Lee, when that first Spider-Man came out, he had to sue Marvel for the money that was owed to him. So Marvel doesn't pony up the dough, even to people like Stan Lee. So you really have to strong arm them with legal power to get anything. And I think like Ed Brubaker did, Starlin did. I'm not sure about McFarlane, but I think.
I would love to know, like, if these guys went out and sought reporters to get these stories out there, because Starlin said it, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing Ed went out and he's probably got some friends in the entertainment industry and found a reporter and was like, here's a juicy one for you. Marvel's the biggest name in the entertainment industry right now, and they're hosing me over.
Right. His interview was on Batman with Fat Man, or whatever it's called.
Okay.
Kevin Smith.
Batman with Batman.
Yeah, it's on Kevin Smith's podcast. So he didn't really seek out a story was created off the interview. Mm-hmm. He didn't really seek out a reporter, but I get what you're saying. But yeah, they
didn't twist his arm to start telling that story, though, I'm guessing.
Yeah, he volunteered it. And the thing is, a lot of these things, when these guys have these lawsuits, they have these is it non-confidentials? It's like where you can't talk about the details of these settlements. So the thing is, we're never really going to know what happens behind closed doors and what these compensation, if anything, is happening. But I do believe, like you said, Clint, like Starlin said it himself.
Starlin got paid off.
Eventually, yeah, but he had to go out and he had to make a huge stink about it, though.
Yeah, definitely. No, definitely.
Yeah,
and that just seems like par for the course for Marvel, where it's more about the company and less about the creators.
It's always been that. Like you look at the top creators now, Scott Snyder, Tony Daniels, they're going off to Image to do creator-owned stuff. Ed Brubaker, he's got his own creator-owned stuff out there already. He's in a Criminal and a bunch of other stuff. It hasn't been turned into a movie, but he's probably got Hollywood producers looking at it left and right or optioned already. So it's a little bit of crying after the fact. It's like, yeah, one of your creations got made big at Marvel, but you're probably using that as a springboard into getting one of your creator-owned things going. And I mean, all these top creators are realizing, like, once this stuff gets made into movies, I'm getting a pittance for it. And if I got a creator-owned thing wherever I'm publishing it at, that's where the real money's at.
Do you think that's what's been the impetus to get all these creator-owned projects out here from these guys that are work for the big two?
I just can't believe it hasn't happened faster. I mean, Image showed it 20 years ago, and it's you have to kind of make your name for yourself, or the theory is you have to make your name for yourself at the big two, and then you can launch that. But there's been plenty of guys out there that have done it the opposite way. Had a creator-owned thing, indie published or published it through Image, got it optioned into a movie, and then they sit for the next 10 years, and Marvel and DC editors fawn over them because they want to know how they got their movie optioned, because they all want to be screenwriters. So it's with each creator, it's a little different, but yeah.
I have a question for you, Art. Being that you're you like most of your career, you were an inker. Do you get any royalties from stuff that you work on? Because
I co-created Time Masters, which they used a lot in. Is it Legends of Tomorrow, the Warner Brothers show?
Yeah.
And all that stuff. So they even called those guys Time Masters, which is based on the book I did with Bob Wayne. And so, it's weird because I think it is kind of hush money. It's not like a royalty that they give you. Sometimes they just give you kind of like a one and done payment. Like
it's a buyout.
It's like a thank you, like for doing this. So it was a pretty good sized check. It was great.
40 grand usually or more.
Yeah, but they are just kind of like, hey, just so you don't feel disgruntled or you don't, feel slighted. And then like with Marvel, I created all the like cable characters from his timeline with Fabian Nicieza. So all those supporting characters are all like Fabian and I. But it's like there is a contract. I do have a contract with Marvel, but it's a percentage of a percentage. It's not even 1% of the gross. It's like 1% of 1% of the gross.
Well,
you know what I mean? It's really crazy.
I meant
Philip, because we haven't talked to Philip yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So Philip, why do you think this is happening now? Why do you think like people like Ed Brubaker and Jim Starlin, are coming out now and talking about these things?
I don't want to sound bad towards those guys, but they feel slighted and not getting. They're seeing this whole industry blow up, and maybe they're not doing as much as at those companies and stuff like that. And they're like, "Hey, where's my cut of the pie?" Especially if they had contracts like that. And I know from Shane Davis's talks about kind of royalty stuff, creating characters, and how he's created and didn't really want to give these companies his best ideas because a lot of the times when you do that and then your project ends or whatever, they'll kill that character off, and then that's the end of that, and you don't get any residuals from that character in the future. Or I think I heard what they're doing now is like a lot of the times if they need a new character, say it's like a new kind of like Green Lantern character, that you won't get as much or anything because it's a derivative of a character that it's
of the Green Lantern core. So there's they're already created. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You're just kind of adding to the core kind of thing.
And
But
even,
we all know
obviously,
some of those characters can stand out. Some of those Green Lantern characters can have a life of their own. So that's not necessarily fact. Go ahead, Todd.
One of the things that's also happening is we're moving away from the A list to the B list, and these guys are still alive. Like the Steve Ditkos and unfortunately Stan Lee and the people that created some of the the Bob Kanes and the Bill Fingers. These guys aren't alive anymore. But now we're using characters on the screens of they were created or invented or began, and these people are still here.
right. Like Time
The creators are
Masters.
still here.
Did you ever think
Right.
Time Masters was going to be in any other form of medium, like a movie or a TV show?
No, when I did that Burton film had just come out. I think it was around that time.
Yeah.
So superhero films, like other than the Donner film, which was like God, seems like a decade before the Tim Burton Batman. But other than that, there wasn't really anything. There was some bad TV, like Spider-Man, and
it was awful. I would think the generation now looking back on it, like thinks like Superman happened and then the Batman movie happened like right back to back, and that springboarded like the Marvel universe because people like saw the money in superheroes. But like it was decades between. And some bad movies like Superman 4: Quest for Peace, and the later Batman movies where Schwarzenegger was Mr. Freeze.
Batman Forever, yeah.
And
the
it was
bat
like
nipples.
Yeah, there was giant gaps.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like Marvel and DC have always done this. Like DC, when I started working there, because like when I was even working on Adventures of Superman with Dan Jurgens, those royalties, and I don't care, they were like $70 a month. Like that's it. Like for Adventures of Superman, you just go, holy shit. I mean, we built it all the way to like the wedding and the death of and all that. So those books ended up starting selling hundreds of thousands and then millions. But it came from like nothing. But even then they were saying like, well, Warner Brothers makes all their money off of licensing. They don't make it off the comic books. So they don't really give a shit. Like they don't even care. The only time that Warner Brothers cared is when they killed off Robin. Remember when they did that whole like vote in and like, do you want Robin dead or not? It's like, of course everybody's going to say yes, because they just want to see if you're going to do it or not. Even if they love the character, they're still going to do it, right? And so then Warner Brothers talks to DC and goes, what the fuck are you doing? We have underoos. We have licenses. Robin, you just killed off a cash cow, you bastards. So they had to bring back Robin real quick with like, I think it was the Neil Adams redesign and all that other stuff. But you know what I mean? Like it didn't even become a blip on the radar, Warner Brothers radar, until they did something drastic. And then Adventure, like when Superman, and then, there you go.
I'm guessing some editor cut holy hell from like up above. It's like we're selling millions of dollars of Robin underoos every year.
Yeah.
And what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. And then on top of that, there's what else was it? There was like the death of Superman. So like Warner Brothers, I think, kind of knew. But they didn't know it was going to be a phenomenon like it was. That was a pop phenomenon. Like newspapers, like it were headlines, Superman's dead, that type of stuff. So then, like Warner Brothers is like, holy shit, now what do you do? Like, you just killed off Superman. So these are bigger issues like licensing and money and things like that. And I do know, I know I'm kind of hogging things up, but Marvel with T-shirts, like when we were working on the X books, they were T-shirts manufactured like freaking, they were just pumping those suckers out, right? And so we would get comps, but we didn't see a dime off of it. So contractually, like what Marvel used to do is they had work for hire agreements, right? And so on the front of the agreement was like a voucher. It was posed as a voucher, right? So the front of the thing, it's about this big, and it's a voucher. So you fill out what's the title, what's the issue number, how many pages, and how much you get per page, right? And then you total it. And that's the front. But on the back, there's about 3 paragraphs, and it's only like this big. So it's 3 huge legal paragraphs, and they're all condensed down to like magnifying glass size. And you have to read this thing, and what it says is anything you created in that issue is Marvel's property. That's it. And so that goes for licensing, marketing, just everything across the board. And they don't refer to it as royalties. They say for all this, you'll get compensated in the form of an incentive, not a royalty, because a royalty is legal binding. An incentive is like, if we feel like it, we'll give it to you. If not, no big deal. But then right under that, you sign it. So what it is just in the form of a voucher. You're signing a contractual agreement. They sneak it in because you're not going to get paid unless you sign that voucher, right? But by signing the voucher, you're also signing this fucking agreement, right? That's like really underhanded.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how almost all of us worked for many decades at Marvel. And then I remember having this conversation with Jim Lee. I go, these are incentives. These aren't royalties. And he goes, it wouldn't be in Marvel's best interest not to pay us. And I was like, okay.
So Legkick actually brought up an interesting concept. There's like what happens when the character is reimagined. Like you have the original Miss Marvel, which is Carol Danvers, was created back in the 70s.
Yeah.
They changed her into Captain Marvel, so she's been reimagined. Now there's another character that's taken over the Miss Marvel role. Does do any royalties? Derivative. Yeah, do all those royalties go to these other guys, or is that specifically like, nope, you guys have nothing to do with this because these characters have been reimagined?
They have nothing to do with it because they've all been reimagined.
Yeah,
like,
right.
The main companies are looking for ways to get out. Like they have people hired just specifically to get out of having to pay these royalties.
Yeah.
Well, think about the reimagining. Does that not muck up the water? Does it not gray the area? So if there's like, okay, what was it? Joe and Jack created Bucky Barnes, right? So then Bucky Barnes becomes Winter Soldier. So does this not become like, well, who gets what at that point? It's still Bucky Barnes. He still has the same origin. He still has the same backstory, but now it's this other character. So then do you split the royalties? How does that work? And that's where I do feel for the companies. And it might be why we're starting to see some of these characters be reimagined, because then it does muck up the waters legally. So like, who did what now? You know what I mean? Like this stuff becomes like harder to prove in a court of law, where if you just say it's Bucky Barnes, I created it in this issue, and he's never changed, then it's a lot easier to prove. So yeah,
that's an interesting question though. Is like, I'd be interested to talk to some of those guys that have created characters like that, and like, do they get anything for this? Because I mean, like you said, it's still the same. It's still the same, technically the same character. It's still the same original origin. They just gave him a different name and put a different costume on him.
Well, I want to ask Philip something. This is a hypothetical. Okay, so you're a writer, like you're enjoying, a lot of like independence right now. Your books are doing really well. If Marvel came tomorrow and said, "We want you to do your dream book," like if your dream character is Spider-Man or Captain America or X-Men, how would you feel about that, and what would you do?
I would tell them to purchase the rights of Lobo from DC so I could write Lobo.
Okay, let me rephrase this, okay? What if DC Comics came to you and had you write Lobo?
If I had all the freedom I could, I'd write Lobo. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a writing game. I recently was hired to write a story for John Malin on Graveyard Shift.
Nice.
And that's awesome, and pages are coming in. They look so cool. But I think, and we had a contract and stuff, but they, it's cool playing with other people's characters. I had a lot of fun with it, but I'm not very new to this stuff, so I don't know about the stuff you guys do with, being in the industry for so long and royalties and all that stuff. I think it's very different working on a corporate level than an independent level, even though there's still contracts. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. That would be cool.
But see, I think that's fundamentally the problem. Is like even you hear like bands. Like I remember like listening to like the story of Black Sabbath. Like they gave up all their publishing, and they didn't know what publishing was. Publishing is the rights to the songs. Like they didn't know what that was. So basically, they gave up publishing in perpetuity, like to Warner Brothers or whoever was that. And the only way a lot of these bands are able to do well later is they get once they get a hit, they get a powerful attorney, and then they come in and they renegotiate the terms for the contract. You know what I mean? And that's what it sounds like Jim Starlin's doing, and like Brubaker and these guys is like, now that there's a lot of success, then they can go forward, and it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile to go after Marvel for Winter Soldier. You know what I mean? But if Winter Soldier just remained in that comic book and nothing ever came of it, I seriously doubt if Ed Brubaker would have ever made a stink.
Yeah, he wouldn't have cared.
So it's kind of like there's success to it, but there's also like this it's like you're wet behind the ears. You know what I mean? Like you're just like, well, I have no idea what this thing's worth. I'm going to create it for work for hire as a contract. I create Wolverine. You know what I mean? It's just another character in another book. Of the Hulk. You know what I mean? And then it becomes the next huge thing. So my thing to like people like Philip that are like just coming up the ranks, like I think you have to treat everything you create like it could potentially be this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know what I mean? You have to enter in like that, because I know Bob Kane has a lot of like, okay, it's Bob Kane, he's a shit, he effed over Bill Finger, all this stuff. But the thing is, he had a cousin or a brother or whatever that was an attorney. So when he sold Batman to DC Comics, he stayed attached to it, right? So even the Batman TV series, the movies, all that stuff, he got a creator byline on it, and he got residuals. He got royalties off of everything done. He was still an asshole because he fucked over Bill Finger and other people that created stuff. But that's the worst part of this, is sometimes you end up becoming the thing that you fought against, And so, he went in there smart. He went in there with his eyes open, and he actually did well in his lifetime, where Siegel and Schuster sold like Superman for like $100 or whatever. And then on one of these live streams, somebody in the chat said, with inflation, it was like $1,200.
Yeah.
Wow.
That makes a difference.
So the chat brought up another interesting idea. Is like you brought up like an Elseworlds kind of thing. What about when there's a character that's like it's an Elseworlds version, but it's still clearly that character? So what happens there?
Yeah,
it's the whole derivative thing again.
Yeah.
It just seems like it seems like they really lean into this legalese to just be like, take it to like, what you create is ours.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think it really depends. It depends on, that's the thing is you can go in and you can negotiate these things, but like, they're probably not going to be as receptive. Like if I was just a newbie and I went in and I created a new villain or something like that for Batman, they would, and I said, well, I want 40% ownership. They would just laugh at me, and they would go, well, who gives a shit? And most likely after you pitch that character, they'll just use that idea and they'll pitch it to another writer, and then that guy will write it and not get paid shit, and these companies will own it flat out. I remember like all companies do this, by the way, like public like music, movies, TV, comic books, they all kind of do these things, because I remember like when I started pitching, like I pitched Chrono Mechanics around Hollywood, and I was like, can I get like those confidential like agreements if I came in with these executive signs? So I'm talking to my agent about this, and he's going, most likely not. And I said, well, if it was reverse, I would have to do it. He said, yeah, but they have something you want. You're a dime a dozen. They don't care about you. You know what I mean? So you're just going to throw it out there and just hope that they don't swipe it. And I remember also when I Pamela and I we signed with William Morris for Black and White in the mid '90s, and we're pitching around Hollywood. And I remember we walked into an office, and they already had black and white copies there. And that guy was already familiar with it before the meeting was even set up. So these guys already have these ideas. You know what I mean? Like they're looking at stuff. So they could take anything from anywhere and just like redress it a little bit and then claim it as theirs. Like little pieces here, little pieces there. And I know we've all kind of seen stuff like that happen, where you go, that looks very coincidental. That seems like this comic book idea.
Well, go back to the quote to what Shane Davis was talking about as well. He had that whole thing with like Zack Snyder and the Man of Steel, because Shane did Superman Earth 1, and he said a lot of the shots from that movie he drew, and they referenced the book a ton. And I think there was a thing where he didn't even get a thanks at the end of the credits. I'm not sure if he got any royalty compensation for that, but there was a big issue with that. And they are looking to the comics for a lot of these movies and stuff. And it happens sometimes where they don't get thanked or any credits for those ideas.
Yeah, because it's a panel, like even writing, like when you write story ideas, you can't really copyright the idea, you know what I mean? So they can take those story ideas and they can use them. I remember I had a conversation with Mike Mignola, and we were talking. I was like, you must be flattered that Disney animated that Atlantis was all based on your designs and all that stuff. He goes, I didn't do any of those designs. I go, you got credit. He said, they already had all that shit before they even called me in. He said, I went in to the studio and they had all my artwork on the walls. They already had all these concepts in my style, like all over the place. And so they hired him to come in and do some concepts. And he said, if I contributed anything, they were environments. They weren't like the characters or anything like that. And then he said it was like a token. It was like, we're going to use your shit, but we know we're going to get called on it. So we're just going to bring you in just so we can make it seem like that we're being fair, and he did get paid and all that other stuff, but they were going to do it regardless. They were already doing it before, he signed off. And even the way they sold the Marvel Cinematic Universe was like, it was bullshit because, they brought in, it was like Tom Brevoort, there was Joe Quesada, there was Mike Miller, there was Bendis. And so they had like this brain trust, these people that they brought in. And I told everybody then, I go, this is just for street cred, right? This is just so all the fans can go, oh my gosh, look at those guys were like the brain trust at Marvel. And then the opening where it flips and you see the comic book panels, I was like, this is all just to try to like
window dressing.
Yeah, buy out, like look, we're like fan service, right? We care about these products and stuff like that. And I told everybody, it's like, as soon as they don't need this, Hollywood will just discard them.
Well, and there was a time where Quesada and Bendis and Miller were kind of bitching that they kind of got booted out of the writer's room or whatever you want to call it. Once they'd had a couple of, once they saw which way the movies were going, they were like, we don't need you guys anymore. And it was like their voices got very tiny in the creative structure.
Well, just look at the opening credits now. They have like the movie stuff flipped like it's a page. Like they have the movie calendar. They have the movie version of all these characters now. Hollywood has nothing but contempt for what we do. Don't have any misgivings about that. I think they're going to use you as much as they can. And I do remember this was really telling. It was my editor, and she was like, people that were working with her and stuff, she was trying to be like nice and give us like fair warning. And she said if people come up and want to interview you and stuff like that, the news and whatever, she goes, 90% of them just want to mock you, and humiliate you and look like, oh, look at how silly and goofy these people are. You know what I mean? Look at they're talking with passion about a guy dressed like a bat or whatever it is. You know what? So it's going to be kind of like, hey, look at this. Isn't this silly? And so when she said that, I was like, yeah, that's what Hollywood, because that's, San Diego Comic-Con started going more Hollywood, and that's when, she was giving people the heads up. And so I was like, yeah, that's exactly what they do. And it's a shame, but, they don't care. And then
now it's the opposite. Is you got Martin Scorsese ripping on the Marvel movies as they're at. This is still the same contempt, but it's from the other angle now. Is nobody cares about us because the Marvel movies make so much money. So it's the other aspect of the contempt is now they're jealous and they're like, oh, these movies, this isn't real cinema. This is just a theme park ride in a theater. And so it's like Hollywood has always had contempt for the comic book aspect of these movies. They've always looked down on it. Now they're looking down on it because they're getting their asses kicked because it's what the fans want.
Well,
exactly.
So there's an interesting question, and I can pose this to Phil since he's a writer. If you went and did that with them, if say Marvel did hire you to do your dream project, or DC did hire you to do your dream project, and this is a question: would you when you went in there knowing that what you were going to do was basically going to be owned by them, and that you would, even if you did manage to negotiate, and I don't even know what would be like something that they would agree to, like 5% or something like that. would you hold things back? Because we've seen a big drop in the quality of comics and comic writing and comic stories and characters and things like that. Is that part of the problem, that even when people go work for the big two, even if they do get some kind of like some kind of incentive, even if depending on what it is,
Right.
Are they going to hold back their best stuff for something creator owned, hoping to become the next Mark Millar?
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, I feel like a lot of people in like writers and stuff in Marvel and DC, they don't think they could do it on their own because they've been in those companies for so long, and that's what they want to do. Like someone like me, I already know that I could do this by myself, and we have an audience and stuff, so I could go and if that were the case, I would kind of form the stories around those characters, so it wouldn't be something that I could take and do somewhere else. So, I mean, when I do a story, I'm writing it at 100%, and I'm not coming from a place where I'm like, this is Marvel's my only place I could do something. If that makes sense. So, like, I already have a freaking Lobo story I want to do. I plotted it out years ago. So.
Yeah, I just wonder if that's a factor with the because I'm reading like you said, you're talking about Scott Snyder. I'm reading his book Noctera. Yeah, and the villain in that book really would make a really good Batman villain.
Yeah,
but he didn't use him over there. He used him in this book. So I'm wondering if now that crowdfunding is becoming like being self-actuated and having full ownership of this, and plus we're seeing these big deals with guys like we said, Mark Millar. Getting these big deals, are some of these writers starting to hold stuff back, and is that having and is that part of what's causing the decline in quality?
Yeah, I'm sure. More and more people are thinking, seeing stuff that we're doing, they're like, oh, we could do this on our own. So it's gonna diminish whatever creative stuff they put out at the other companies if they're starting to work on creator-owned stuff.
Phil, I know you are interested in writing Lobo.
Yeah.
So have you thought at all about going the Sarah Beatty route and just posting on Twitter your big auburn tits? I mean, she's a redhead, so she's got big boobs, and just kind of talking about your anxiety. So, the liberal editors at DC are like, think you're so hip and cutting, but then, you're really just posting big titty pictures. So,
no, but
you could kiss up to Tim Seeley with that, I would think, and like get that Lobo Superman gig or something.
Hold that, Phil. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm going to read this super chat. Thank you, D Geekart, for the $5. An indie film blatantly stole their movie story from Adam Potts. Is that it? Cartoonist. They misinterpreted his comic and butchered it. I wanted to cry for him. Yeah, that happens too. Definitely. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, if I had bigger boobs, I would post them more often.
I mean, it's getting Seeley, and I mean Sarah Beatty. I think she has a long history of writing comics and knowing the characters. So I mean, they're doing Superman Lobo. That seems like a good gig.
Yeah, it's so odd, and I heard in an interview Bisley's actually doing a cover for that, so I'll only pick it up for that.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, at this point, there's not much point of putting out a Lobo series without a Bisley cover. So
right, for sure. But yeah, that is weird. The creative team is two chicks. I didn't know that Sarah Beatty was writing it, but Mirka Andolfo is the artist, and I like her stuff, but I wouldn't put her on a Lobo book,
No, it's not really.
I had to. Is it Mirka Andolfo?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, she did do back when they back in I think it was like 2009, 2010 when they tried to relaunch Chaos.
I've got a story with this.
I've got a couple.
Let me welcome Todd DeWolf in real quick. Hey, DeWolf, what's up, man?
What's up?
Hey, doing good.
We're going old school, man.
We are old school.
Yeah, but I agree. I don't think her style would necessarily work for a Lobo book, but I don't know. Maybe she'll change it up.
which is a very feminine style for all of her characters.
Yeah,
she's a good artist at what she does. It doesn't fit Lobo's Superman whatsoever.
I mean, if it was a book where Lobo's banging a bunch of chicks, I could see that because he does all that sexy stuff.
Yeah,
but
if you're not gonna go with Bisley, man, you gotta go with someone like Liam Sharp or something like that.
This is all like these are all chicks that are tied to Seeley. That's why they're on this gig.
Oh yeah.
And Seeley's the co-writer, so.
I wonder if
really?
had to sign one of those
agreements. Yeah, it's Sarah Beatty.
It's
Sarah Beatty and Seeley writing it, and then Seeley's bringing in that chick artist. So like
that's interesting.
Because I worked with them on the Chaos stuff.
Not to bring us all about Lobo, but I spoke to Tim Seeley last C2E2 because he did a Lobo one shot for the Blackest Night thing. Kyle Hotz did the illustrations. It was a good story. Kyle Hotz is awesome. He's one of my favorite at DC right now. And he's like, yeah, I tried to pitch. I have a pitch for a book with Kyle, but DC won't do anything with it. So maybe they're like, oh, you have to do it with this team, and you can get your story out there. Really,
I think Tim figured out what creators the editors liked, and then teamed up with them. Like Seeley knows how the business works, and he works his way around. I think there's a lot of editors that think that Sarah Beatty's Twitter account is pretty cool, and all of a sudden, she's writing at DC then. So it's the whole like your Twitter account is part of your portfolio for getting jobs with some of these editors. And I mean, it's a weird, it's how editorial is shifted from like it used to be fans and people working their way up through the industry, got the jobs as editors working in the industry, knew the whole backstory of the characters, loved the characters, revered the characters, appreciated the fans. It's what's happened in the last 15 years with editorial. Editorial could give a shit about the characters or the fans. They have their nose dug in on Twitter and whatever is like happening there. Twitter is kind of destroying comics.
Yeah, editors were like they looked at themselves as custodians of the character, so they always tried to keep the heart of the character and the integrity of the character intact. So they were always like, they wrangled the talent. So the talent were always pushing the envelope. They wanted to do all kinds of crazy shit, right? But then the editor would always go, well, that's not what Superman would do. Superman would do this. Superman would do, and so they would always bring them back down to reality and try to guide them. And that just doesn't happen as much anymore. But what I want to see, we brought the Wolf in. So have you been listening, the Wolf? Do you have some?
Yeah. I was out and about earlier, but I was able to catch a little bit about what you were saying, and specifically, Art, what you were saying about who owns what, or a little while ago. And there's a whole thing that in this idea of money and who owns what, that it's just a contract. It's just business. And it doesn't matter if you're in playing the stock market or you're trying to invest in a business. You put money into something, then you're going to get something out. And if you don't, then you're not, right? It's kind of that's way simple. Like for instance, Gilligan's Island, right? Gilligan, that show ran for syndication. All those old TV shows, they ran for so long, and then all the actors got very little out of it, right? And because it all came down to the contract. And when you're talking about joining into a company, even with a normal company, where if you're designing something, Ford Motors, if you're working for Ford and you've got a great idea for a new tire or a new cup holder, and it revolutionizes everything, it's known as the new Ford cup holder, not yours.
Right.
Yeah. And so it comes down to the owning company owns the product. So it doesn't matter if you join a Marvel or a Disney or a DC, and you come up with an idea or a character, they're basically going to own that unless you put something down in a contract first. And then, of course, that's where it leads to where we are today now with independent freelancers. then you're actually owning that until you give that away. And that's where you were talking about, I think, Black and White or chrono mechanics, on how you're going to present it to them. And they said, oh, no, we're not going to, we're going to, you want in on our business. So we're going to take what you have, versus chrono mechanics becoming very popular, and now everyone wants a piece of it. There's 1 million or 2 million fans out there. That's when they say, we want to be a part of chrono mechanics, and you now have the ability to sign the contract and make the contract the way you want it to be. So it's just based on where you're at in the system at the time.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky. I had a conversation with Matt Groening when it was at some show or something like that, and so we were taking a bus together, and so we were talking, and that was about the time I was trying to get some animation shows going and things like that, and we were talking, and he said your first sale, you won't own anything. He said you will get completely screwed over. He said when I sold the rights to The Simpsons, he said I didn't get hardly anything. I got a few points, and we were able to negotiate a creator buy line, in the credits. But that's it. So he got nothing as far as the sale of the show, the concept. But he said, when he sold Futurama, he said he made more off the initial sale of Futurama than he had on all the seasons of The Simpsons up to that point. That's how little he was making off The Simpsons. And, this is, I'm like really just, I like to do the right thing. I like to think that people would do the right thing. And I always just think, okay, you're Fox, right? You have this juggernaut. Which is The Simpsons. Just bring Matt in and renegotiate the contract, right? Just do it. Just because you owe him everything. If he didn't create this show, you would have nothing. But they don't. You know what I mean?
Hold on, Art. We don't owe him anything.
Right.
We bought that from him already. Once you buy the thing and you own the thing and you took the onus on yourself, you don't owe that guy anything.
Yeah, we had a contract. They'll fulfill the contract. But the thing is, it just, I guess it's like what we're trying to tell, like Phil and maybe some new guys going in. If you're going to create something for these companies, you have to treat it like it's the be all end all. You just have to. I remember when I was going, art school, and I took a design course, and my teacher said, you have everything you do, like because this was design, like every logo you come up with, everything that you come up with, you have to act like it's the Golden Arches, right? It's the McDonald's logo, because you never know if that is going to be the iconography or the logo for a corporation or a company that just catches fire and just goes on forever. The DreamWorks logo, the kid fishing, in the moon, on the moon, all that stuff. Like when you come up with these things, you kind of have to go in with vibrato, right? You have to go in like your shit doesn't stink. You have to go in and just go, you know what? Yeah. This is the best fucking logo you're ever going to get. And you're going to pay me for it. Because
unless it's not, you have to look at your own creation and you have to decide what is the price point on that creation. Are you willing to sell it off for name recognition like Matt Groening did? Or are you willing to say, I know this is $1 million creation. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's only a $10 creation, but you can sell it for 20. You've made something good there and you can move on to something else. But if you're thinking that your product is $1 million creation and then someone comes along and says, I'll give you 100, you're not going to do that. You're going to say, I'm going to stick with this. I know this is a winner. And so I'm going to wait for the better contract, either something that's going to either pay me outright a whole bunch or give me the residuals in the long run.
Or what Groening did.
Which if it is, you're going to
have multiple ideas where you're getting hosed on the first one, but you've got a couple other ideas in your pocket. You're hoping whatever company is railroading you on the first one is going to turn into a big, huge thing. And then you've got that second idea where that's where you're going to make your money, because now your name is attached to that first big thing. It blew up. Then there's going to be companies coming, and then that's when the momentum shifts for a creator. Now
right.
you're known.
That's when you have the cloud. That's when you can go to these companies and say, I'm a proven commodity. Yeah. So I really do understand both sides of the equation. But let me just, like, one of the things we do on Pontificators is we also talk about, like, what would be the future of this? Like, how would there be a remedy to this? Because like a lot of the things that we pointed out, like if you come onto a Green Lantern, the Green Lantern book, right, and you create a new Green Lantern, is that how much ownership do you have? It's a Green Lantern. They have the same powers and abilities that were originally created. So it's just a different name, maybe a slight costume change, and maybe some background, they come from a different galaxy than these other ones. But other than that, it's still a Green Lantern. Like,
what if I created like the Muddy Brown Lantern? Would that be far enough off?
The brown note lantern?
The Poopy Pants Brown Lantern.
What about the Rainbow Lantern?
Or just a flashlight, not even a full-on lantern.
Or the more recent ultraviolet lantern that just came out. They actually made that. So
of course.
There is a question in the chat real quick, Art. If you
can,
a leg kick asked, is character creation part of the contract negotiation for artists or writers? I think it's definitely part of your guys' whenever you sign a contract with them, isn't it?
Wait. Is it this one?
Yeah.
Is the character creation part of contract negotiations for writers and artists? Sometimes it is. When I first started the business, it was not. There was nothing. There was nothing like that. When I first started the business, DC stuff was all just it was all like handshake. Like, you didn't really, there wasn't even a lot of contracts.
And I'm guessing that's where some of the early guys have a little bit of legal ground, where if they wanted to spend money on a lawyer, for some of those character creations, they could get their chunk.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because there wasn't an understanding. There wasn't a legal understanding between. So I would say no. I would say even when they started sending the contracts, like I said, like the Marvel voucher, when you sign it, you're giving away all rights to the images, the story, anything that's created within those 22 pages of that comic book. So I would say no. The thing is, when later, when I was just like the crest of Image days, like when there was McFarlane, there was Liefeld, there was Jim Lee, there was Will Spartaccio, all those guys that ended up becoming Image guys. Those guys were getting better deals at Marvel, and I was one of them because I was there, as that group. And so Marvel was kind of volunteering ownership, like co-ownership contracts. Like I said, with Cable, Fabian and I signed an agreement. So I think the reason they did that is because they saw the writing on the wall that we were all probably going to leave. So they had to start trying to give us something in return to keep us there and keep us happy. Mm-hmm. But it was very, very little. It was too little, too late. And really, most of us just wanted acknowledgement for what we brought to the books, because there's also that aspect that we haven't even covered. Like, Spider-Man, before McFarlane came on, was selling X number. He comes on, he's the X factor, right? The numbers go through the roof. How do you fucking explain that, right? Like, how do you say that? Is that Spider-Man, or is that Todd McFarlane working on Spider-Man? You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. Like, who makes who?
But leading into what you were talking about, the future, now, considering that you say that character that isn't part of it, do you think that's going to become part of the future, where any new creators? Because it seems like they're going to places where creators are just like, I just want to work. That's what the big two seem to be doing, is they're pulling from a workforce that's like, I just want a paycheck. I want to work. I'm trying to live. Because we see them going more and more and more to these far fringes. Do you think any of these big time writers, like going forward in the future, do you think they're going to be more like, hey, we need to negotiate this stuff?
Philip, did you have an answer? Did you?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say they're going out to the islands and like the Philippines and grabbing artists and stuff that people might not have as much skin in the game, and they want to be workers,
Mhm.
and you want to put stuff out there, be a part of Marvel and DC, and they're willing to do it for low rates. So, with that aspect of it, who knows where the future is going to go with those companies and employing people that are out of the country like that. And if they're just willing to get the work done, that's obviously the best for the big companies because they don't really have to invest much into those artists to get some quality of work in there. But yeah, for guys that are, I think we see like, Snyder and all these guys going to do their creator-owned stuff. I think that is what the future is to get around, getting gypped on royalties and stuff like that. I think we could see it now already happening.
Yeah, and just to your point, Bob, I think freelancers have already lost the battle.
Mhm.
I think back to what I was saying with like before the image exodus, I think the battle had already been. It seemed like it got won, but it was like a temporary victory. So like all the image guys were like, we want a bigger take. They wanted to renegotiate the agreements, and Marvel just wasn't. And so the thing is, then they went over to Image and they did it themselves. They own the IPs and they made, every penny off of the sales.
Yeah.
So temporarily they proved a point. They won, but in the long run, everything's worse now than it ever was.
But
Let me just finish.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so then there's like to Bob and what Philip was saying is that I think people coming in today, like new writers, new artists, I think they're not going to be able to negotiate anything. I think it's kind of like what Philip was saying. They're going to be lucky just to have a freaking job, you know. And if they start any shit, like Philip said, they're just going to go to the Philippines or Brazil, or they'll just hire some Tumblr artist to come in and to do the book. That's the problem with it. But I think in the long run, it's to their own detriment. Like I think like it's going to hurt them because it's not quality.
That's the point I was going to make. Is they won the battle to lose the war. They've negotiated or screwed so many creators that the top talent is, and like with the independent market now, the top talent is like, maybe you go to Marvel or DC for a little bit, but you immediately go and make your own creator-owned thing, and you leave Marvel and DC behind, to the point where that's maybe the biggest result is look at the sales of Marvel and DC now, because they can't attract any talent, and if they do, it's not for any length of time. They've diluted, like there's no decent page rate out there unless you're some established guy who's like buddy with like a head editor or something.
Yeah.
Like go ahead, Art.
Oh, I was just going to say, to your point, like Sean Gordon Murphy, that got aced off of the Bat books, like what he was doing was trying to have like the best of both. So he's always been like an indie guy, but like he does these great mainstream books as well. So the thing is, his mainstream stuff was doing very, very well. So then, then he goes and does a crowdfund, like an Indiegogo. What was it? Potholes? What was it called?
Plot holes.
Plot holes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then, then I forget the details, but then DC, does anybody know why they kind of canceled the Bat books that he was doing?
Well, yeah, at a certain point, they were like giving him a whole line of Bat books.
Yeah,
and
then
the SJWs, like Sean Gordon Murphy was trying to straddle the fence. Like he didn't want to go too far one way or the other. He wanted Comicsgate and SJWs to love him. He wanted to be at DC and have his own line of Bat books and still do his indie creation that he could turn into a movie or whatever. And like but at the same time, he was like trying to like please everybody, and I think it just ended up biting him in the ass. He's still like I don't think he's hurt, and I think he's doing very well for himself. But I don't know what happened to his Bat line of books.
I blame Doug TenNapel. He was trying to
with that cover,
doing that cover for Doug.
Yeah. That is probably a serious factor of what brought him down.
Yeah, but
I know
these
that editors watch all this stuff.
Yeah.
They know everything, and like if you are friends with the wrong person on Twitter or something, or like the wrong tweet, it like can crumble a career.
Yeah, it's I know that he's still doing the White Knight books, but they're not pushing them and promoting them like they used to. It's all like really low key now
you never know who editorial behind the scenes got fired or isn't still there, or somebody got promoted over somebody, because all these books like they get pushed by who is the editor behind them.
He was supposed to have his own universe.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, the White Knight universe. Yeah, he was
going to all of it. It's all done.
And stuff for
There's no current book whatsoever.
I think the Harley Quinn book was the last one that came out like a month ago. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do want to say something. It's sort of a personal experience, cautionary tale kind of thing. You can get, what would you say, at any level in this business, you can be taken advantage of and be treated badly. Even with all your ducks in a row, you could be treated poorly.
Yeah.
So,
somebody brought up
it can happen to anybody.
Yeah, somebody brought up the whole thing with Todd McFarlane and what's his name? With Neil Gaiman with the Angela thing.
I don't really understand how that even happened.
I don't either. It's so convoluted. It's weird.
Yeah.
But
Gaiman created Angela for that story, and then McFarlane ran with it. And then Gaiman saw that he was making a shitload of money off of Angela, and he's like, "Hey, Todd, where's my cut?" And Todd's like, "Well, this is a character in my comic." And Gaiman is like, "No, I created it." Like it's literally, it couldn't be more cut and dry. And I don't know if they came to lawsuits or if they agreed out of court, but it was basically like, "Yeah, this is my creation, even if it was in your comic book." And so, both of those guys had money behind them and success behind them and egos behind them to kind of duke it out. And I don't know if it was settled in court or they settled it out of court and came to an agreement. I think Todd ended up with Angela and then paid money off to Gaiman for the character. But this is 15, 20 years ago. I'm remembering this from.
Yeah, and it's a convoluted story because one side says that when he created the character that they were supposed to have joint ownership. One side says no.
Yeah.
And it's just, but it's interesting. Yeah, but it's interesting how Todd, one of Todd's biggest problems was that kind of thing happening with Marvel and DC, and then he goes and does his comic, and the same thing happens.
The second you start your own business, you're just another one of Marvel and DC. So it's like you're running the same
problem. It's like you're destined to repeat the patterns because that's the business model. That's the business model, and it benefits you. And so it's almost like one of those things. Like you worked under those agreements. So then you're just like, well, you need to pay your dues too. You need to work under these same agreements and then try to work up a resume to the point where then you can start dictating some terms. And that's kind of where we're at. So moving forward, like we try to do on Pontificators, is like, where do you think all this is going? Do you think like DC and Marvel, like and even some of these independents, they like Todd was saying about his experiences and things like that even these independents can screw you over with agreements and like weasel you out of ownership and things like that. I know I forget which press it was. They wanted to publish Chrono Mechanics, and they kept giving me contracts that had ownership in it, like in perpetuity. And it's like, I can't give you ownership. And then they go, okay, how about this? And then it was publishing rights in perpetuity. I go, it's the same thing. And then they kept like changing it. Like there was 3 different like contracts that all said similar things, but in different ways. And I was like, no. And then I just like, we can't come to terms because you keep trying to weasel out of something.
Trying to legalize me to death.
Yeah. And all they were going to do is give me upfront money against royalties. That's it. Meaning I still had to pay them back for that money at the end anyway. They were just giving me advance against royalties. So they weren't even out on a limb. You know what I mean? Like they were going to recoup their costs because the first X amount of money that comes in that they advanced me, they're going to get back. So it's like, you know, when you have all the cards, you know, sometimes, you know, I think if you don't have integrity, you use them and you can screw people.
That's exactly right. You're right. It comes down to integrity. If people don't have it, they're gonna look. It was something I could smell and feel early on, and I just knew where it was headed, and it went exactly where I thought it would go. You know.
So the main thing is, if you want to work in comics and run your own business, definitely don't have integrity. Start from there. And then
get it all in writing.
Screw as many other people over as you can, and then make money off of them.
Yeah,
and you can kind of rise to the top a little bit. Yeah. I think that's a lesson for us all.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. If you get screwed, then you can screw the next guy and so on and so forth. It's just kind of like, you know, the next generation repeats the whole, you know, the whole pattern.
Once I made some, you know, show of what had happened, right? Once I said some things.
You're talking about Florida Man, right?
Yeah. Right. Once I did, other people came to me and said, one, they said things like, I could have told you that was going to happen. That's who that person is. Really shocked me. And 2, that happened to me with that person. You know, and what it really boils down to is these guys could still be doing they could be doing Nexus monthly. Steve Root and Mike Barrett, monthly Nexus and making money. And you know what? Steve won't work with Mike anymore. He doesn't want to. And there's a reason for that. There's an absolute reason for that.
Yeah, you become a tyrant. But like moving forward, like one of the things that I think we had mentioned a while back on one of the Pontificators shows is like how possibly if the big 2 wanted to make a difference, and this would also reflect in dollar signs. These are all hypotheticals.
These are like a huge hypothetical, man.
These are like you know,
I've got an analogy.
As a potential solution if anybody's listening. So what we had talked about before was that what if like these companies incentivized creativity? So one of the things we're saying, heroes are only as good as your villains, right? So, you know, like I remember even when I was working at DC and Marvel, they were like, how do we make this character relevant in today's society? How do we make this, you know, sing to this generation, whatever, right? Well, you know, and then they would go off on these crazy tangents, like let's give Superman long hair, let's give him a mullet, you know what I mean? Or
electricity.
Yeah, like all these things, like they go like they go to Crazyville. And it's the thing is, you don't have to. All you have to do is put them in a relevant world. Make your villains relevant. Make them contemporary. You know, and then you don't have to change Superman. Superman's the same guy he's always been. But it's going to be completely different with his integrity based on this new set of, you know, villainous things. You know what I mean? So then you get to redefine your hero based on these new villains. And then just to take it further, incentivize these new creations. So if you're DC,
Art. Well,
let me finish so the readers know where I'm going. You probably know where I'm going, but they don't.
You have the optimism of Superman, Art.
Right. So
everybody's
then,
good in their heart. No.
Yeah.
Well, the problem here is vision.
Marvel and DC are run by Lex Luthor, unfortunately.
You guys aren't even going to let me finish.
No, guy. Hey, Art, you can mute all of us, man. This is your channel.
No. I mean, I know this is pie in the sky stuff, but my hopes are you put it out in the world, right? And then maybe maybe someone's listening or whatever, or at the very least us moving forward with our franchise. Each one of us have either we're aspiring to create something or we have created something, and we're going to be working with a lot of other people moving forward. So the thing is, if you could incentivize a creation, and it's a villain, then you have like this villain mandate or this villain type of program. And so then you have co-ownership. You can't give 50-50 ownership because they just can't do that. And I understand why, because legally, if they had two people that had the exact same stake and voice in it, one can fuck the other one over. You know what I mean? And you don't want that. So the corporation is always going to have the controlling shares. But if you could be more generous, like a 70-30 or something like that, then you're incentivizing the creators to give you something. And then by them giving you something, you can elevate these books. Because if there's money involved and there's credit and there's all of these things, these guys aren't going to be looking elsewhere. They're going to be staying there, and they're going to be going, I want to create the next Batman villain. And I would also make it where it's across the board, where writers aren't the only ones. Pencilers, inkers, letterers, colorists, anybody on staff could come up with it. Because my feeling is good ideas can come from anywhere. So then anybody that can pitch this thing to DC and sell them on these ideas, then it happens, right? And then all of a sudden you have things escalating. You have things.
Haven't they done some like the black what is it, blacklist or black
label?
Black label at DC, or haven't they tried? And like Mark Miller and Bendis both got like special deals at Marvel, where they like did kind of creator-owned things. Like I know Bendis for sure had one at Marvel, where as a creator-owned thing, Marvel published, and I don't know what kind of percentage cuts, but it was what you're basically talking about.
Yeah, but you know why they're doing that? I mean, they're doing that like to keep them happy, so they don't go independent.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
that's the only way I see Marvel and DC doing it, is for their top talent, trying to keep them around.
Yeah.
Because like Marvel and DC needs an incentive for doing it too. They're not going to offer creator-owned rights to just the rookie penciler or inker or writer that is just breaking in. So like I don't see it doing long term.
To my point, Bob Kane, nobody knew who the F that guy was.
Oh yeah.
Siegel and Schuster, nobody knew who those guys were. I know, but they came out of nowhere. They didn't have a resume. And they came out of nowhere and created these icons. So I think good ideas can come from anywhere,
for sure.
As long as they can pitch it, as long as they can sell it,
So here's the thing, Art. I've been listening to what you're talking about there, but your problem is, and I was going to say that Marvel and DC don't have vision, but it's not that they just don't have vision. And you're talking about money and creativity. Well, they don't necessarily want creativity. They do want money, though. And you assume that money comes from a fan base and selling comics. They don't. Whether it does or not, they don't believe that. So in the current day and age, power and money comes from someplace else. It's a leftist agenda. So what you don't know is that they're being subsidized by someone else that's pushing these other things that we don't understand. And that's the difference. That's why they won't move forward with just good characters, because good characters don't matter. The agenda does. And that's
contemporarily speaking. So you're talking about like agenda as far as like politics and like
right.
that type of stuff.
Political.
Right, but what I'm talking about,
that's the reason. That's the reason why they make the business decisions that they're making today. And that's what you're talking about, is business decisions.
Right. It didn't always exist, though. Like that. Yeah. That's more of a new, thing that's happening in comics. I believe that it's like the Marvel image thing, right? It's like it is like who made who. Like Marvel doesn't want to budge because they want to believe that Spider-Man is what sells that book. That's their belief. That's their God, right? The Marvel universe is their God, and that's it. That's it. Anybody that comes in, who gives a shit, right? And so what they did is they just doubled down on that belief, the belief that it's not Todd McFarlane that sells Spider-Man.
The brand's the star.
The brand is the star. So even like Disney, you look at Disney, that's how they operate. It's the brand, it's the overall. So but like Todd and all those image guys, they had a point. Why didn't this happen before? Like if it was just Spider-Man, then why didn't it happen before? But they can't bend, because it's kind of like what you're saying, Todd. I mean, it's agenda, but it's kind of like a corporate. It's more like it is the brand. The brand is the be all end all, and we'll die on this hill before we give you any acknowledgement. You know what I mean? And as soon as we can decimate you, we will. Like, we'll use you up to a point, and then we'll just decimate you. And I'm not that naive, you guys. I understand.
Yeah, no, I get it.
You know?
Art, Pete's backstage, and
cool.
I did have a question for you. As far as the incentive thing is, how much do you think people should get? Because if you're going to give it to everybody, you know, if you're going to make it available for everybody, how much do you think that company would be willing to do? Like 5%, 10%? What would what would be the least that you would take?
I cut it off right before Inkers. Because Inkers don't really contribute a lot.
Well, see, that's why I asked Art about the Inker thing, because when I asked you, I didn't. Yeah,
cheap shot.
No, it was no, seriously, because everybody always talks about the writer and the penciler. You know, what about, you know, like if you ink an original character? Now, you weren't involved in the creation of it, but you're the inker on the book.
I was there. I was there with all those Superman summits.
Mm-hmm.
The letter was there. The colorist was there. Glenn Whitmore, the colorist, was there. Like, everybody was there.
So as long as you're involved in the creative process, you get something.
I think the team.
Well, no one got anything. You know, no one got shit. But everybody did contribute. You know, equally.
It's a percentage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know what the percentage would be, Bob, because I mean, on a corporate level, I don't see them being very generous. But if they even, like, to me, a real percentage is 10%. Like to me, that's the start. So, like, you know, if you even go 5%, to me, that's nothing. But Marvel and DC were giving, like, for ownership. Well, Marvel it was like 1% of 1%. It wasn't even a full 1% that you got off the sales of these books. The only reason the royalties were as good as they were is because these books were selling millions of copies. But when they were selling the normal, you got a couple $100. You know, you weren't getting tens of thousands of dollars, but they were making millions of dollars, you know, off of it. So I don't know. All I can say is, like, I think it would have to be a real percentage. And to me, 10, 15, 20% is a start. I think if somebody came in and had a bigger name, maybe they could give them a bigger percentage. But I think to keep it fair and to keep it equitable, the idea that I pitched, I think it would have to be a universal number, like percentage.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
well, and the rest of the world has something called commission. If you sell more cars, you get a bigger commission, right?
Yeah. Well, the royalties, it goes up as well, because based on sales. So if it sells more, then you make more. But also, the one thing about royalties or incentives is they don't start paying out on those things until they make their money back.
Right.
So they'll have, like, oh, well, the royalties don't kick in till 30,000
copies
sold. You know, so I know Pete's been very patient in the chat. So Pete, add to the conversation, please.
No, it's a good show. I was waiting for like 10 minutes backstage. It was nice.
I'm so sorry. I asked those guys.
I'm sorry, man. I'm trying to keep up with everything everybody's saying and everything, and I'm missing it.
Well, go ahead, Pete.
Well, what did you want me to weigh in on specifically?
Well, just, I mean, you've been listening overall, so we're kind of trying to wrap it up. But like based on stuff that we had talked about originally, like, I don't know, what's your take on the whole thing? Like the Winter
Do you think
Soldier.
Marvel and DC will be more generous with young creators coming in?
Well,
like,
not even that.
I don't think any company should be generous with anything ever. I think everybody should be about business. I think everybody should be making the deals they want to make that they think are fair for them at the time. I think they should stick to them and agree to them, and then that's it. And negotiate before business is done, not afterwards.
Yeah.
I think once you start saying let's negotiate after everything's been done and let's renegotiate over and over again, depending upon the varied success of a project, the contract's meaningless at that point. Everything in it is meaningless at that point. Your signature is meaningless at that point. Every single term that you outline is meaningless at that point.
But it happens all the time. It's like I said, bands.
That's a bad
once they
thing.
get a hit, they come in and they renegotiate the term. So you're
saying renegotiating a contract once the original contract term is up or anything like that, or you just decide the contract offers you the ability to renegotiate at any point in time. That's a different thing. But we're not talking.
They were negotiating once they had some kind of sway over. So usually, like these bands that then land a hit, or have a hit record,
exactly.
Then they go back in and they renegotiate.
See, we're talking about the band, though. The band, in its essence, is the people that create the music. This is a different animal entirely compared to the comic book. The comic book, you've created it, but
worried about PR, maybe.
A publisher is different than a band. A record label is different than a publisher.
No, because they're giving up publishing rights to the song. I mean, it's exactly the same thing. It's like Jim, to me, who was it?
Not necessarily, because you're not creating and working within the confines of the record label now owns your song, unless, of course, your contract works out that way. Whereas when you're coming into, this is the way I see the whole thing. The people that originally create these characters, they originally created them for the comic books. There was no talk and discussion and even an idea of a video game, a movie, a TV show, a toy, a t-shirt. It was just make the comic book characters. Okay, that's what I agreed to. That's what I did. The company owns the character for publication in the comic book. Now, when these things are being used in ancillary terms for things that no one thought in the beginning were possible, and the company now is purely profiting off of it, a creator could go in there and say, hey, if I had known this was going to be done, I would have asked for different terms. I would have gotten something. I would have gotten either more money or I would have gotten some points for these things. I understand that. Now, when you have creators that are 10 to 15 years, going back now from today, and they go into it and they're thinking, well, I'm getting screwed now 10 or 15 years, later on because something I did is now in a movie or a TV or a game show type thing. You guys knew that this was going to happen,
but they didn't. It's like it's a work for hire. It's a work for hire agreement.
They're completely stupid and feigning ignorance.
What do you do? You
have to negotiate or get ready to walk. That's it, because you can't say like 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, or even let's even say from Image. When Image was formed, 1992, we're talking about the fact that there's a lot of people that left that going, wow, the comic industry is kind of weird. The big two, I think a little bit, on the not on the up and up.
I think somebody's mic just popped out.
Yeah, I'm repeating myself.
You want to drive home that point?
It's either Todd or Clint Helensky.
Here, let me mute.
Hello. No, it's not Clint.
No, not Clint.
It's Todd. Did you mute? No, did you mute that? You can mute him on your side.
Hello. Testing 1 2. Sibilance.
I'm muted,
there you go.
So
okay, it was Zach.
So once we have Image Comics into the foray, and there's creator owned all over the place, and they're having massive success. At that point in time, anyone that works for the big two, you know what you're getting into. And then once TV shows and films and everything else start dropping like crazy, and that was even before Image Comics.
Yeah,
you're talking about that and understand at that point what you create is for that company. So
You're
the terms that you agree to
coming in now.
I'm talking about someone coming in now.
Right. I agree.
So to see the creators, the modern era creators that are all like sour grapes about it, well, you had to make that deal and outline those terms before all of that stuff, before pen met paper and you started creating and putting product out there. Otherwise, you know what you can do? You can say, hey, this thing that I created or co-creator had a hand in, or I even worked on the stupid book. I was just a letterer on the book. But now the book is being turned into XYZ film, whatever it is. promote your product that you're working on now. Parlay that into your own success. So many of these creators don't see it that way, though. Instead, they're just like, where's my money? Where's my money? Well, your money should have been negotiated for in those terms before you signed that contract. And if you didn't want to do that, you should have been having enough cojones to walk away then if those terms were against what you felt were fair. But
yeah, most artists, aren't businessmen, though. They're just
well, they should be. They got to learn. Yeah, they got to learn how to be. They got to learn how to speak.
We spend too much time learning how to draw. We can't read contracts.
And if they're happy enough to take $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000, pay whatever it may be, I have no idea. They could agree to $1. They could agree to do it all for free and just think, hey, the exposure. That's up to them. That's the deal that they found fair at the time. If you're starving in the middle of the desert and someone says, here's a Big Mac that'll save your life, but I want $500, and you have $500 to give, that's a damn good deal for a Big Mac. That Big Mac does not equal $500. That Big Mac equals saving your life. Okay, so if you're someone who signs a deal and you signed that deal, if you want to start having a fluid kind of contract system, it's going to play into the hands of the person with the deepest pockets. And that's always going to be the bigger corporation. It's not going to play to the little guy. So if the little guy wants to start saying, let's constantly have these things that we renegotiate upon because something else was successful, that's a real murky road to walk down.
Yeah, but Joe, let me ask you, this is completely devil's advocate, and I'm not taking a side. I just want to have an interesting discussion. Do you think is there any obligation for a publishing company to somebody like that creates the next Wolverine or that creates the next, Spider-Man? Do you think like there's absolutely no obligation, like that they should just honor the original agreement and that's it, period, in perpetuity? That original creator shouldn't get anything other than what the original deal was, period.
I think at this point in time, they have to know what they're signing into. So if it's for a bigger company and you're aware of the platform that's there, you're signing it in a different way and agreeing to different terms and wanting different points involved for the different things that this character is going to be utilized therein, as opposed to if you're saying, well, I want to go work on a Magic Cop. I want to go do an issue there. And Phil's like, hey, okay, yeah, do an issue of Magic Cop. But you don't own Magic Cop, mother effer. I own that.
Right.
That's right.
You're getting a page. You're getting a page.
And now this is where Brubaker and Starlin are perfect examples. Like Ed Brubaker should have realized Marvel was gonna use whatever he was writing for whatever kind of ancillary stuff that they could. Whereas Starlin in the 70s drawing Thanos, there's no real clue that was going to turn into one of the biggest movies of all time.
Exactly. And then
so
therefore
Starlin has more of an argument where Brubaker knew what he was getting into.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I mean, there is something about like, the earlier work for hire contracts, because a lot of this stuff did not exist, at that time. I mean, there was some like TV and things, but there wasn't like crazy money involved, like the Marvel Universe is now $1 billion enterprise, so the stakes are a lot higher. So
I guarantee you, Jim Starlin did not think there was going to be a CGI Thanos with like a really good actor doing the voice, and that was going to be one of the most profitable movies of all time. I don't think he had a clue about that.
Yeah.
I got a question for Pete.
Mm-hmm.
Two-part question. How have your contracts changed over the years of your business? And what are some things you've recently added to those contracts over the last 2 years?
They benefit the creators now more than ever before. When we started out, the profit percentage was 60-40 for the creator. Now they're 80-20 for the creator. And they've always been 100% the creator owns the IP, the ability to do anything and everything with it. They sell a sticker, they keep everything. They sell merchandise, they keep everything. They sell film rights, they keep everything. People wonder, well, how would you make money if a movie goes and gets picked up in this book? Well, we publish more of the book. And if we don't have the book anymore and we lost the rights to it, well, guess what? We can promote the fact that, hey, we used to publish this book.
Sure.
People that act as if like, oh, well, you can't talk about said things anymore. It happened and it's not the thing that's going on right now. What the hell are you talking about? I don't understand this whole comic industry where everyone is just like, it's always about the thing that's to come as opposed to looking back and being proud of the accomplishments and then saying, hey, this is a good chance to re-promote. Even what we see right now, where they're like, let's spotlight certain characters because of their certain race and this and that and create this and that and whatever. Why don't you just spotlight the books that they're in? It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Why don't you drive some issues, back issue sales based on those books? You know, check out the first appearance of this character. Head down to your local comic shop. Oh, why don't they care about that? Because it's not a new book that benefits the company. They could care less. They don't view it as it benefits the comic shop that makes the sale that can now order more of the new book because now the character's hot and everything that they appear in that's new now, they can get it from the comic shop and they make money off of that. It's a very weird and strange business. It's constant regurgitation, but at the same time, it's not really anything that's moving forward. It's like we're running in quicksand, you know, and either way, that quicksand is just going to pull us down no matter how much energy and effort we put into it. And when it comes to contracts and this and that for creators, at this point, I mean, I do love and appreciate a lot of the different characters, and you can see them from the ones that I loved as a kid, grew up with, and have meant something to me. But now my biggest concern is indie creators moving forward. I don't want them to start thinking, okay, work for hire. Never take work for hire. Always try to get rights because this thing could turn into a movie one day. I hate to say this, but maybe 1% of these projects turn into anything more than a comic book. That's just the pure, plain, simple statistical math of it. I don't want to see creators out there, artists who maybe they could use the $100, $200 page rate. Instead, say, I'll take 50, and instead I get like 20 or 30% on the back end. And that meanwhile, they hurt themselves right now for hoping that that lotto ticket in the future actually cashes in for them.
But you
most
have to go into it. You have to go into it with that, like Bob Kane with Batman. You have to go in thinking that this is going to be, you know, $1 billion, you know, character.
Well, it depends on where you're at, though, Art. I mean, some people are just trying to pay a bill.
Yeah, like I said,
right, that's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask Peter, like, okay, so based on this, how, other than collective bargaining, like if there was enough new people coming into the mainstream that all had the same mindset, how would this even happen? Because if just one person comes in there, you know, off the street and says, I want to create for you, or you want me to create these new products, but you're going to have to create some kind of co-ownership situation, they'll just tell you to kiss their ass.
Okay, so what it is this. When it comes to whoever is the rights holder, let's say it's my book, because I'm working on a new book soon, and I'm going to start hiring artists to do the interiors. But every single new major character that gets, and I don't mean background characters or this and that, but new major characters, whether it's a hero, villain, or whoever, a big key plot point player, I'm going to be sketching out and giving them the character designs. So they are referencing my art to draw it. I'm not going to say, hey, artist, do all the character designs, but you don't own any of what you've created.
Right.
That's not fair. And if someone wants to do that, if a writer comes in and says, this artist, you know, I'm hiring you for the book, I'm giving you a page rate, but be aware, you're going to pretty much be visually creating all of these characters from nothing, just from my create, I don't know, one of the characters in my book is going to be called Granite Beast. So you just come up with what you think a granite beast would look like.
Right.
If that's the case, the artist has to go in there and say, okay, I'll take that job, but you got to be aware. Number one, I want more money because I'm creating character designs. And number two, I want back end cut from anything that's merchandised with this character on it. So therefore, now you have the terms established that are fair for both involved. If it becomes this situation where an artist just goes, just because I'm drawing your book and you give me references and everything else, I still want ownership in anything that's done with these characters, as if they have ownership and stake and claim with it, and not just that they're paid the page rate to do the project, that's when it's that's an artist being ridiculous at that point, and they're going to cost themselves work in the long run. So I want people to be armed with the knowledge of, don't be afraid to speak up and don't be afraid to ask for what you want, but at the same time be ready and willing and understanding that you're going to have to compromise.
Yeah, the only way it's going to work is it's going to be all or nothing, because just coming in out of the blue without having a resume, that's exactly what's going to happen. And I remember, this is when I was still working, for the big two. I would get together with other inkers and other creative people, and I would tell them my page rate. I'd get in these discussions, at the bar and stuff like that. I'd say, so how much are you making? And they would go, well, it's not really, it's not really my place to tell you. And I said, well, I'm making this much. And so then it becomes competitive. Then they start telling you, because then they either make more than you or they make less, and then they're like, I'm better than you and I should get paid more money. And then all I do is walk away with a smile on my face because I just planted that seed, right? Because either I'm going to go and I'm going to negotiate for more money, or they're going to. And so this is stuff that companies don't want you to know. They don't want you to have the power. Because I remember when I broke in, they said, it's not polite to tell people how much you make, and it's not this and that. And I remember I had an early discussion with Joe Rubenstein, and Joe said, it's how much you make. And you know what else? If you work on unlettered, unbordered pages, this is how much they pay you. He spelled it all out. You know what? Not one single editor ever told me any of that stuff. Like, they didn't want to tell me anything that I could, possibly make more money. They wanted to keep me, young and dumb. And I always remember that. So I wanted to not necessarily create an inkers union. I remember talking to Jonathan Glepion and like Norm Rappin and Danny Mick and some other like top inkers. And I remember like just telling them like, we should just start sharing our page rates. Just everywhere you go, just start sharing your page rates. And they're like, yeah, but you don't do that stuff. And I go, it's the only way things are going to change, because if the new guys come in and they know what the going rate are, they're not going to undercut you, because the thing is, they already know what it pays. So if the top rate or just like an average ink rate is 150, they're not going to settle for $50. They're going to know what that page rate is. And then if you say the page rate is anywhere between $150 to start to $300, then they also know that there's growth potential, that ultimately, if they can get as good as that person, or they put in that much time and they're trustworthy, then they could make that much money. Like a corporation knows there's steps that you can go. So you kind of know where you could be potentially as far as a breadwinner or as far as a wage earner. But comics doesn't have that. Like comics is just everybody's blind. So anybody could undercut anybody at any time. So even like what we're talking about is like what you were saying, Pete, like negotiating contracts. The only way I can see it working is if the word got out that you can do this and that you should do this, as far as negotiating like characters or ownership of said characters when you go in, because I think a lot of people don't even know that they can do that. You know what I mean? And then, because if you go in right now out of the blue, they'll just tell you to kiss their ass. So the only way it's going to change is if there's enough people and the word does get out that people go in and start asking for those things. It's the only way the industry is going to change. And I have one thing on that same note, that, okay, Marvel and DC go, oh, well, we can't afford it because the books don't sell. Fuck you, the books don't sell. That's not my responsibility. I give you good art. I give you good story. You have people that make more money than I do. You have marketing, you have sales, you have all those divisions. Those people make, 6 figures a year plus. Those guys need to do their jobs.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's not my job to sell the book. It's my job to give you a good book to sell. So if the book isn't selling, that's not my fault. That's your fault.
So where do we go from there then, Art, since we're doing all this independent stuff? A lot of us are.
I just have to say, keep getting me all riled up.
Well, a lot of
Go
us
ahead,
are
Bill.
Going to kind of the publisher side of things, where I have a universe where I could hire a different writer if I wanted to work on some stuff. Like, what would you do, or what should I do as an indie publisher if someone is there, if I'm employing someone that's creating characters for me? And what would you do, Art?
Yeah, I'm kind of like Pete. Like, it comes down to what the two decide on. And then like if that's the decision, they bring everything to the table, what they want. And then you say what you want, and then you come to terms, and then you write that up in a contract. Then that's the contract, But I think the bigger thing, like with you, Phil, me, and anybody else that's creative in this chat right now, is that we're open to it. You know what I mean? If somebody came in, we would be open to it more so than I think the big two. I think they would be a little bit more closed off to it because they know in the past that they've been able to exploit people and get ideas for nothing.
Well, they also have the leverage in that situation.
Right.
You know, it's all about who has the leverage. So in that situation, Phil, where you're going to be hiring someone to create for you, while you still have some of the leverage, they in that situation have a little bit more of the power because you need them to create for you. If you have concepts, if you have sketches, if you already have designs created, which I recommend every single creator out there that you do that. I don't care if you don't know how to draw that well. It doesn't matter. You have to have something.
Sure, that's what we do.
Yeah. So if you present that and say, okay, you know, here is my interpretation. This is how I see the character. And this is for you to reference it. And of course, draw it the way that you would draw. Now, if you come back and you see that design is greatly altered from yours, and you think like, oh, cool, it looks awesome. It looks even better than mine. And you think that you're going to get away scot-free with that design and that they're not going to come a knocking one day, even if they're nice about it now, you'd be deadly mistaken. So at that point, make sure that you understand, okay, look, I love the design. We're going to use your design. I'm going to compensate you for that design. And then you can talk about that.
Sure.
But don't do the thing like no creator out there. And I'm of course, I'm not trying to say Phil would do such things or whatever. Phil's the example here. But no creator out there should you guys be going into it thinking, oh, you know, they're so nice. They're going to be nice to me forever. Well, what if your thing does become the thing that goes through the roof? Mm-hmm. All those creators that you thought were so nice and did things to be nice, they're not going to be so nice.
Always assume things will go wrong. I've seen that
so many times. Yep, I've seen that so many times. Yep.
Always assume things will go wrong.
Yeah. Todd, you had a second question, right?
My question was had a part two of what are some things that you've added in contracts over the last 2 or 3, 4 years? You've learned something. And now I've been in business for 20 years, but now I've learned a lot about contracts and how people deal with certain things. And I've added these things and they're staples in my contracts now.
Yeah. And I think Pete kind of answered that.
Yeah.
But
is that question specifically for me?
It was
for you.
Okay. Oh, I think the only thing that we added infamously so was our social media conduct policy. And that has to do just with basically it's mostly for Twitter because of the fact that Twitter was such a place that we used to market rather heavily because we're independent. We don't have necessarily money at our disposal, but we have time and we have the ability to spread the word through social media. And we didn't want people to just block people indiscriminately by using block lists. If you blocked someone individually and you had that problem with them, fine. But it was one of those things, if I got enough people coming at me and saying, and in one case I did, saying, okay, this creator, I've never interacted with them. They got me blocked. What's going on with that? I went to go follow them. You were promoting their book and I went to follow them and found I'm blocked. We got enough reports of that I brought it up with that person who was a work for hire. They were a letterer. I'm not even going to protect their identity. It was Micah Myers. He was on Feast or Famine at the time. He was hired by Dave Schwartz, who's the creator and the rights holder, and he was the contract writer as well. He was the person who signed it. He was the person that talked to Micah and said, okay, you know, is this actually happening? Is this true? Do you have block lists running? And he's like, yeah, I do. So I had told Micah, I said, okay, look, I said, we have a social media policy about that, but your work for hire, you're not exactly specifically who we have the contract with. So what we'll do to avoid everybody grief, because we want to avoid grief for Dave as well, we just won't put your handle, your social media, your Twitter handle on there. We'll put your name, but not your, you know, so people can't just go click there and then automatically find that they have you blocked or whatever. He didn't want to do that. He resigned. He stepped down from the book. I said, all right, well, that's your choice. You know, it's between you and Dave. I didn't hire you. I'm just letting you know because I don't want grief to be on Dave's doorstep because of the fact that this is occurring. It's just going to cause drama. Ha, ha, ha. It caused a load of drama because then Micah turned around and said, I fired him. I did not fire him. If anything, I did everything within my power to keep him on the book. He chose to quit and chose to resign. And then he spun a whole yarn about how I fired him and all this other stuff. And I wanted him to be put in harm's way through harassment, of which he was getting admittedly none of. I have emails and DMs from him that he was not getting any harassment. He just preemptively wanted to block people to avoid harassment. And
I'm gonna back up for a minute. This is a letterer.
This was a letterer. Yeah.
Okay, like most letterers now aren't even creating their own fonts. Like they're just, basically getting them from other places. Like this guy's pretty uppity for it.
Well, yeah, he chose to, and as many people at the time chose to bring out the daggers and make up stories and say what they could say to get some attention and basically maybe think that, okay, this guy, he rejected me at one point in time. I can't tell you how many people that I rejected that came out of the woodwork.
Right.
And now's our time. Take them out. And many of them use that situation to get a little bit of notoriety, some pats on the backs, and they thought that likes would equal success and all that other stuff.
This sounds like SJW's playing the victim card.
For most of them, it didn't do anything, but it was harrowing for me because I could care less about what any of them said, but they convinced about 10 to 12 creators at Alterna at the time. Some of these people I knew for about almost 8 to 10 years to completely turn their backs on us, and me in particular. And they were like, yeah, Pete's supporting a hate group and all this other stuff that I heard about on the internet and whatever. And I'm like, you've known me now for how long? You're saying I'm supporting what now? I'm like, and guess what, guys? I'm selling your books. These are people who enjoy your books. I only write right now at this point in time, only really one book at Alterna I wrote was The Chair, which was getting published at that time and still in circulation. Everything else is someone else's book, and they're the person that owns it, 100% creator owned. So the fact that they came along and said, I'm courting a hate group and all these awful people to read their books. And I'm thinking, like, what are you guys publishing that's making a hate group want to read your books?
Yeah.
Shouldn't I want to not publish your book? You're the one bringing hateful people to my doorstep.
Yeah, for sure.
They don't see it that way, though. And not that I think any hateful people were reading our books or anything like that. I stood by the fact that it's all a bunch of BS. But the fact is that this is what people will do, and they'll make up all these things to take people out. And at the time, it's very harrowing to know that, well, I got, again, the people coming at me was one thing. It's just, that's whatever.
Okay,
but the people that I trusted, that's what had hurt at the time. And
even
that's what made it feel like nothing was going on that was going to crumble the whole business.
Okay, if somebody signs that agreement and they still break the agreement, they still do those things, like, at that point, what do you do?
Well, at that point, if it was the rights holder, if it was Dave at that point in time who was the rights holder, the person who signed the contract, and they were like, "No, I'm gonna still keep doing that." I'm say, "Well, we got to drop your book. You violated the terms. It's breach of contract."
Okay,
you
so
signed to it, you agreed to it,
and then you would null and void the contract. Okay. Yep. Man, that is badass. I like that.
Dude, I've had to do remember that story, Art.
I've had to do a couple breach of contracts over the years from people who either, in one case, the person didn't even actually own the copyrights. They were stealing it from someone else. I said, that's immediate grounds for termination.
Wow.
I said, I see somebody else already doing this. It was like 3 years ago. And that's it. Your contract, I'm sending it in the mail. It's done.
Yeah, because then that's going to go on to you, like your company,
And it's other things of, latenesses, they pile up, this and that, they miss deadlines, people choosing, again, it's creator owned too. That's something else that people have to understand. I try my best to tell the creators at Alterna and really get them to understand you have to be the face and the voice of your book, your brand. It's creator owned. Don't count on me to do that. I will help you. I'll do everything in my power. But you don't want people associating your book and everything else with me and only with Alterna, and they never know you. You're completely losing the point of having all the rights and the ability to do such a thing within that kind of a company. You want to make sure that you're building your platform and that you are the face of your book. Now, people over the years, of course, they go, that's just you cutting corners. You don't want to help promote the books and you don't want to do this. I'm like, man, oh man, you guys, I want to work with you. If anything, when I publish a book and I sign a book on, I'm not saying, I'm your boss now. You work for me. If anything, it's the opposite. I work for you. You tell me what it is, you want to do, the direction you want to go in. And I say, okay, let's find a game plan. Let's come up with a strategy. Let me help you. I'm here to be of service. Now, if you don't want to do anything and you have a great book, but you're just someone who just could care less about promotion and marketing, but I got 10 other creators that do, well, guess who gets attention then? Guess who gets the help to promote and market? Those people. But if you don't want to promote it and your book is good and people like it, I'll keep it on. But if it comes time and you're like, hey, you know, it didn't do as good because you didn't market it for me and you didn't talk about it as much as you did the other ones, I'll be like, you don't talk about your own book, but you want me to talk about it and be the face of it. I've had times where it turns around and then they get resentful of that. So there's all kinds of different things. And over 15 years, I've seen it all.
Yeah, it was a hard thing for me to grasp coming from Marvel and DC, because they're supposed to sell and market the books, even though
They are.
Very different scenario.
very good
Yes.
job of it.
Right.
And so when what's that?
I gotta take off. I gotta be on Bancroft's show in a minute. But thank you
All
for
right,
having me on.
Oh,
Hey, no problem. Thank you so much. Take care. Tell Mike I said hi.
Hail the chat.
Yeah, and so you know, when I came over and I started, you know, Black and White and Chrono Mechanics and stuff like that, you start realizing that you are the face of the book. Like, the only way this IP is going to do anything is if you sell it. It doesn't sell itself. And coming from the mainstream, it was hard for me to wrap my head around. And now I totally see, like, there's no other way to do it. Like, don't wait for these companies to promote. I don't even want that anymore. I want to get out. I want to promote my book. And the cool thing about, like what we're doing in Comicsgate is we can go on different people's channels and we can do it now. So we're each have a different venue to sell.
The network of creators. It's a beautiful thing.
Fucking fantastic, man. It's fantastic because none of us have a budget to market and sell, but we have a platform and we can all share that. And I think that is, it is pretty fantastic. And I did want to ask you something as an aside. In your contracts, if you don't, I just wanted to advise people, put deadlines in too. So make sure that there's a deadline schedule when you're working with talent, so they know the expectations. And sometimes, like a contractor that comes to your house, you can put what do they call that? Where it's not an incentive where you actually take away from them. Like, if they don't make their deadlines, they lose X amount of royalties, or they lose a percentage, or they lose something if they don't hit their deadlines. So I know that you can add those into contracts as well, as long as it's within reason. If it's a death of a family member or something like that, you look the other way. But in a contract, that needs to be on schedule, sometimes you can actually, say, if you don't make the deadline, you lose out on this benefit or that benefit or whatever. Have you ever written a contract like that, Pete?
Yeah, we do it all the time. Actually, I just had to talk to one of the creators today that I told them, I need everything by August 1st. Now, in certain cases, I'll give people a month in advance, but I know I need it, let's say September. But I tell them August because I know something's going to happen along the way, and that should be enough time to make sure that the hard deadline of September is met. In other cases, I'll give them 6 months or sometimes even a year. So I'll say I need this, April 2021. And I know that technically I can give all the way up to April 2022. Let's say if it's a cover run, it came out on a Wednesday. I know I can give that much leeway in advance before I start sweating it and say, you know what, that's it. We got to cut ties with you.
And those deadlines would be negotiated.
And those deadlines would be, yeah. So with them, I'll tell them this is the deadline and let them know. And then, heaven forbid, things pop up, because there's always something that comes up along the way. There's always that leeway, that give and take.
Well, good editors do what, like you said, where you give them a fake or a false deadline.
Yeah, you got to give yourself some runway there if you're going to give deadlines. Because if you actually give all your deadlines to a T of what they are and say, no, August 1st is the date, I need it August 1st. Be prepared to miss the deadlines that you have for yourself. So give yourself a buffer there. Give yourself some time. A lot of people, I think, it takes some time to understand and learn that kind of a thing. Because then it turns into, you're just going to get into arguments and fights and put yourself in a stressful situation with the creator you're working with.
And also, if they don't make their deadline, then you lose out as a publisher because you have windows of like books that you have lined up for this month, this month. So then that starts cutting into your bottom line as a publisher.
And it's bad enough already with the year of 2020 that we've had, and it's spilling over into 2021 with supply chain issues still. I hate the fact that we've only had maybe, I think, 4 or 5 releases in the past year or so, when we used to do monthly releases. But we're finding out a lot of different things that occurred with our printers at the time, and now we're going to use another printer, so things should be getting back on track again. But it's one of those things where even that, when you think you gave yourself enough time and you can change things up, you still have to find backup plans for your backup plans. So, you can never have too many contingency plans in place, but that's something that a lot of different, newer creators, they have to learn. And if they don't already know it, they're going to learn it.
Right. So let's start winding down a little bit. And do we have parting shots? Bob, you got a parting shot?
No, I think this ended turning up into a lot more interesting topic than I thought we did, and there's a lot more layers to it than I think we originally thought. But a lot of valid points made tonight, and there's so much to talk about it. You know what I mean? We could probably keep talking about this and digging into it, but as far as hypotheticals are concerned, I honestly don't know. I don't know that the big two want to change. So
that's the big thing.
That's the big problem. And like you said, you have to, unless you've got some clout walking in, they're going to continue to just do the, okay, we're going to take advantage of everything that we can because it's a corporate entity.
And the creator has to go into it realizing that they can also take advantage too.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
utilize
Get it in
credits on their resume as well and boost themselves. Don't let exposure work for you. That's the double-sided sword there of what a lot of creators think. Okay, exposure, I'm going to work for exposure. Well, the exposure is only really what you make of it too. So you get paid for a job and you get the exposure of working for said company or on said property, but make sure you let people know about it. It's not up to the company to be nice and say, "Oh, hey, did you know, Art T. Bear worked for us on this and that and whatever," and they let everyone know all the time. They could care less. They have they have other things going on. They got other creators to worry about their other situations. So it's up to you as a creator to maximize that opportunity and let people know about it.
You know what? In writing. Yeah. This was an interesting, like when DC launched New 52, they sent out memos. It since bit them in the ass, but they asked people to use their social media to advertise the books that they were on. And I'm such a contrary, like with that stuff, I'm like, those people in your marketing, in your sales department make more money than I do. Why the hell should I do their freaking job? You know what I mean? So I always resented it. And then, that was like a few years later, I'm starting to think more independently. And then Comicsgate thing started becoming more viable, financially. And then I was just like, you know what? If I'm going to start being a mouthpiece for Marvel or like DC, then I'd rather be just a straight mouthpiece for myself and my IPs because, like you said, they don't care. Like they could get rid of you tomorrow. They don't care. And they did.
See, that's the other part. I get where you're coming from with that, but it's definitely that's an opportunity for you to say, I did the inking on this issue. Check this out. And then it boosts your brand. It boosts the awareness of people going, oh man, what? I got to check that out. And then if they do check it out and they tie it to you and they go, oh man, I like that guy. I got to follow their work, which then boosts your profile and your leverage for negotiations.
Right.
And then also boosts you to parlay into your own creator-owned property.
Right. But if you had both of those things in mind, that you were going to do both, work for the mainstream and do a creator-owned, it could definitely work in your advantage that way. But I just felt like I was just like, I can't do this because you have people that are actually getting paid to do what you're asking me to do. And then, after that, people would say it the way they wanted to. And then DC is coming in with memos saying, if you're going to do social media and say this, here's the guidelines of what you should say or what you can't say, and then it got to the point,
that's
have us okay these things before.
That's the sneaky corporation doing it. Of now they're saying, oh, you're using your platform to promote our product. We're going to tell you how to talk about everything now.
Exactly. And then I was just like, no, I'm done. I'll do it for myself, but I'm not going to do it for you. God, even like wearing, I'm not even going to get into it. But anyway, Todd, what's your parting shot?
Do a little research when you're starting with anything, with any project or at any level. Do a little research. Know the tough questions. Get the tough questions out of the way, and learn how to negotiate. And don't ever feel like the word leverage has been used, but don't ever feel like you don't have any. Right? Whatever position you're taking on a project, you have some because they wanted you for it or whatever. So if there's something you want to ask for or things that you might need, don't be afraid to bring them up. There's just no amount of, like having the weapons ahead of time. No amount of information you could garner that isn't going to be good enough. Always know going in what's about to happen in this negotiation and what do I want out of it.
Well, the thing is, it's better to break the situation in the negotiation than to try to make peace and to try to act like there's nothing wrong and then keep working forward, because eventually those problems are going to come up. So if it's going to break, have it break right up front before you invest time and energy into it. So that's really good advice. And then also, I always think that a contract's good because a lot of times there's he said, she said that happen on a handshake or just, verbal agreements. And then, you get into big fights about it. But if you have a contract, you can always go back to it and say, no, this is what it says right here. This is what our agreement was, so if somebody's giving you shit about it and that you're right, it's pretty much the only way you're going to prove it, because otherwise it's just a he said, she said. They can say it's fake or you said the wrong thing, and then you can say the same about them.
If you're going to sign a contract that was created by a different party's legal representation, that's what you have to be careful. If there's a legal party involved, you want him representing everybody. But if they only represent half, you could get really, really screwed. And I suggest don't even signing that type of contract.
Good advice. How about you, DeWolf? Echo.
Well, there's two different kinds of people that are working here, and it's the workers and there's creators. And in the rest of the world, a worker has to develop a resume. He has to get education, training, and he goes from one company to the next company, and he sells himself that he can do a certain amount of work for a certain amount of pay. And there are those types of comic guys that do that. They're kind of artists that are like that. They're just working. But a lot of artists and writers, they think they're creators and they want to be creators. And once you change over from the worker aspect over to the creator aspect, then things change. Now you get into this idea of whether or not my creation is my new character, is he going to go from being this, to a huge movie deal? Well, yes, maybe you can sign a contract. Maybe you can put a character threshold in there where if it breaches the comic, if it goes beyond this, then rights change over back from you back to me or something. You can always negotiate issues like this. But art then says, are we stuck where we're at? Is there anything new and different? Well, Peter is right here. You want to talk about things new and different and things changing? Are things going to change? They're not going to change with Marvel and DC. They're Marvel and DC. And do you care if things change there? Not really. The industry is about the customer and about readers, and they're a fickle lot. You've got your print, you've got your digital, you've got your mangas, you've got everything else going on out there. The key point there is, if you're going to be in the creator part of this world, you're going to find your niche. Your niche is what you do, and you do it well. You put yourself out there well, and then eventually, if you're going to do well, if you do well, it's perfectly great. And if you don't, Well, that's fine, because you're going to move forward. You're going to get back on that horse. You're going to do something different. You're going to learn. And now the person that you're marketing to and you're educating and training for isn't just a one particular employer. It's to everybody, and mainly to yourself. You got to sell yourself to you first, and then you can go out there to everybody else and sell your comic and your creation.
Very good. How about you, Clint?
Basically just reiterating what everybody said. I mean, comics is a business. You got to watch out for yourself. You got to watch your back. Creator-owned stuff is easier to do now than it's ever been. Self-publishing, I mean, Comicsgate has really kind of changed the landscape. You don't even need to be a big name at Marvel and DC. I think Comicsgate has proved that. You can use Marvel and DC as a jumping board if you get that opportunity, but know that they're going to screw you in the end. They're not looking out for your interest. They want to use you as a commodity. And the second that they don't think they can use you anymore, they will spit you out. And the opportunity is out there right now with social media, with the print shops that can do small runs, with Comicsgate, with promoting yourself online on YouTube channels like this. I mean, everybody, if you want to create comics right now, I wish I'd had this 20 years ago. You know, I wish crowdfunding had existed 20 years ago. I would have been doing exactly what I'm doing right now, except I would have been younger and had more energy and have been about 30 pounds less.
Well, we would be kings, right? We would be kings if it happened 20 years ago. Like, we would be the pioneer. I mean, we're already kind of like, you know, helping pioneer this stuff. But I mean, we would have
it's more fun pioneering it when you're like 27 as
well, you'd have the success. You'd be like, oh yeah, those guys, you know, 20 years ago.
But if you're a creator out there, like, the time is now. Like, the opportunity is there to do this. Jump on it, go for it, dive in. Make mistakes, but just go for it, and you'll figure it out as you go along. But yeah, if you love making comics, if you have a huge desire to be in comics, like right now, go for it. Watch all these YouTube channels, listen to what all these creators are saying, and just jump in. And then while you're doing that, back the Blue Bombshell. We just hit 20,000 today, Art. So
congratulations, man.
I'm pretty stoked about that. So yeah, if anybody's watching right now, go check out the Blue Bombshell. I announced our stretch goals today, so pretty big mark for us to hit today. So I'm pretty stoked about that.
Yeah, the book looks great. It's just pure fun. Yeah, so yeah, go back Blue Bombshell. How about you, Zach? Are you actually going to talk in this stream?
Yeah, well, I had a few times where I was like, I might get a word in, but I was like, no.
Well, you know, that echo was what was hurting you, man.
No, it wasn't me. It was the wolf. I know. You blamed me. I was like, it wasn't me.
I can't. Nobody knows this. Nobody knows this.
Me?
Yeah, nope. Zach knows this, but I kept muting.
Yeah, I know. It tells me. It says it lets me know. But anyways, my 2 cents is coming from a different industry, coming from a film and game background. It is very strange to hear how creators complain about the things they make, considering that I was a concept artist. Everything I made literally would just go to the 3D modelers and everything, and I wouldn't get any credit for anything. Like, can anybody tell me who's the creator of Master Chief, one of the most renowned new age characters for video games? No one could tell me the concept artist, what his name is or her name is. No one knows. And you know, I see that person going out of their way to try and get money. And you know, Halo is huge. You know, it's made probably billions of dollars throughout its lifetime. So it's just a very strange concept for me to hear, like the liquidity of the business done in a industry like comics, where I guess it's just like, I guess you have like a much more personal attachment to these characters that you create. Well, I was paid just basically to just come up with as many variations of a character, and eventually one would get used, you know? But I didn't ever own that character. I didn't own any of the designs. I was just paid. It was, 9-to-5 job. So it's a strange thing coming from this. And then coming into it, now I understand, like, these characters, Golma, Neoteric, my comics and everything. Like I have, personal, what What are you doing, Bob?
I'm pointing to the chat. I'm like, I just put a link in there for your book.
Personal.
Yell at me. I'm not gonna. I'll stop doing it from now on.
No, Bob, keep doing. I'm horrible at shilling. I am. Self-proclaimed worst shill of CG, according to Art and Bob. But anyways, that's my 2 cents. It's just a strange thing that business is so liquid and contracts are so fought over things where it's like, we never had, saw that as an issue. It was just a job,
Well, comic books is different because I did kind of dabble in animation and worked around them. I had roommates that were special effects artists, things like that. And so, they're like comic book people are a little bit more territorial with things. They kind of like, they're like, I created this. They feel a little bit more like ownership about it. But also the difference is, I hope that you are really compensated, Zach, is comic books just doesn't pay very well.
Right.
You're giving this shit away practically for free. But like my friend, that does the special effects, he created Fat Bastard for the Austin Powers thing. He got paid really well. You know what I mean? So that makes it better. You know what I mean? So he doesn't necessarily get a created byline. He just gets a special effects, along with all the other names that come down and stuff like that. But he gets paid a shit ton of money. So I think what else is if you're getting paid really well, you might not care about being exploited. You know what I mean? Because you feel you made good money.
I would say that it's worse for concept artists because most of the time you have to, even before you get into a position, you have to do it's a trial period of like 3 months where you don't get paid at all, just to see if you can keep up.
What?
Like pro wrestling, they're going to break your legs for about 6 months, and then we'll let you in.
See if you can keep, and then you get offered a job. But it's like, and it's kind of like it's a seniority sort of position where the longer you're there, the more you get paid. So you start at the bottom bracket at like 40K, like all the other noobs, and then you have to work for 20 years to get up to that was it 6-digit.
So you're a salary player, and then you have a quota every day that you have to. Okay.
Yeah.
So it is a very different process, and I guess the difference is I guess with inflation and other things that will go up as opposed to page rates. For some reason have not. Because I was doing coloring. My first comic gig was like 6 years ago. I was a colorist, and I was doing $200 a page as a colorist.
Wow, that's good money.
Yeah, no, that was really good.
That's good money for a color.
So but then I hear like what people are getting paid now, and I'm like, what in the world? Why is it?
The bottom has dropped out on page rates, especially.
Yeah, it's like $60 a page for colorists. I'm like, what is this? Yeah.
Comics. A lot of Comicsgate books literally paid better page rates for everything than Marvel and DC. Literally.
Yeah, it's a good place to be. How about you, Pete?
Honestly, I think that the future of corporate comics, if it's not turning into this, I'm shocked. I don't know why at this point they just don't have character development teams that actually come up with characters and don't rely upon creators in the comic industry anymore to create these characters. Have a character development team that just creates, and then they give the references out, and they give, this is what the character profile is like. And then the work for hire literally are work for hire. And then no one has to really worry about that. They kind of did
with New 52, where Jim Lee redesigned all the main characters.
That's right.
They kind of did that, but they didn't stick with it. It was just kind of a one-off kind of deal. But that's an interesting idea. Yeah, where you really have a visionary or a core group of really visionary talent, like a movie, like you hire like really brilliant guys.
Yeah,
Like
they're
they do with a
paid
television
well.
show.
They're incentivized. There's performance bonuses if these characters take off, whatever it may be. I mean, at that level, you could give them like 2 to 5%, and it's going to be loading up their bank account. And then everybody that's work for hire is work for hire, plain and simple. And you never have to worry about coming up with something or you losing your great idea to a company.
The only problem is like it just takes spontaneity out of it, because I mean, comics is a monthly, so if a writer just wants to create a character, I think it would be a little harder to do that, because then they would have to bring a team in. So a lot of things would have to be done well in advance. Like it would have to be like a year's worth of run of a comic, or 6 months or whatever it would be, done in advance. So all the villains that are going to be created in that book, all the different characters, these universes, all these things, they would all have to be pre-planned to give to these,
And they should do that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it would change the dynamic of like just spontaneity of like.
Yeah, it would also force them
universe.
to start doing some more evergreen storytelling. It would stop them chasing trends. It would make them more become creative pioneers, because they have to just go, let's just make a good story within the confines of this world, within the characters that we've created. As opposed to saying like, oh, well, let's just chase a trend in terms of this is what's happening right now. And, the whole facade of the world outside your window, which is a total bunch of baloney at this point. I don't know why anyone even buys that, especially at Marvel. World outside my window does not look like what they're putting out. But, this kind of thing with the murky territory, I'm surprised that the big two and any corporate publisher doesn't consider this kind of a thing. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But as a creator, I don't know how any of them go into it at this point now.
They need somebody smart enough to think of it.
Well, there's that, because like if you have a movie, one of the first things you do is you hire a design team to come in, like especially if it's a sci-fi movie or something like that. So you hire visionaries,
and then the storyboard artist isn't necessarily the person coming up with everything top to bottom, full-fledged designs that are just flying out the seat of their pants, and it's all this approval process and everything else,
And even like Disney, like where like the board animators on the cartoons who were responsible for some of the gags, that was incentivized. So if they came up with the gag that was used, they were paid on top of that. So it was in their best interest to not only do what the script said, so they would draw those boards, but then they might spend a couple hours drawing some, deviate from the story of their own boards, and then pitch those. And if those things happen, then they get those performance bonuses or whatever they are. And so I think that's good. And one other thing, just since you brought that up, Pete, I think just like film, when they pitch these comic books, like say this is a new Spider-Man ongoing comic book, they should also not only budget for the talent of the book, but they should budget for the marketing of the book. They should have X amount of dollars that they invest in selling the book, because like film doesn't leave it to chance. Like if it's $100,000 or $100 million movie, they have a $50 million budget. It's always like half of whatever the film is budgeted at. So comic books doesn't have anything like that. Their budget is like, well, we'll put a diamond ad maybe, and that's the extent of it. In the day, maybe if they believe that there would be a stand-up or a poster that the retailer could put in the window.
Yeah, market within the comic shop, and then most of the comic shop retailers, God bless them, but they have no idea what to do in terms of marketing and selling.
Right.
It's a whole industry of the blind leading the blind. And I'm a guy with sunglasses and doors right now saying that.
Yeah. So I completely agree. I think that could revolutionize comics, just between those two ideas. Get a design team to come in, work on that series, and then possibly come up with budgets. And for God's sake, try to sell these things in other venues. Let's get these things in more direct, market, instead of like these specialty shops.
Yeah, distribution has to keep pushing their footprint, which, man, I don't even think they understand that anymore.
I can't believe they didn't see this coming. Like, everybody, all my friends, we saw this coming when the newsstand dried up. well, when they pulled from the newsstand, the two, Marvel and DC, when they did that, we all, we go to conventions, we talk, we just go, what the hell, man? They're just going to direct market versions of these books. There's going to be no newsstand. How are they going to bring in a new audience? How is anybody going to find a comic book shop? Most of the time they're like places that a mom or a dad aren't going to bring their kids to anyway, because they're pretty sleazy. But maybe that'll be another Pontificators program, sleazy retailers. And would you take your kids to them? So my parting shot is, you guys support Comicsgate. There's a ton of great books coming out. There's Philip Diaz. He's got Magic Cop 2. He hit the bell early. And then he's got Lost Pages. There's Clint Helinski's Blue Bombshells. I think Zach pulled Gulma down. Zach, you got to get with the program, man. You got to take some. You got to take some notes, man. And
I got then, up, though. I got the other one.
Yeah. You got another one coming up?
Yeah. No, I have a link. Everything's been linked in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, of course, Pete has Alternative Comics, and just a bunch of brilliant creators and different IPs that he's got there. Just great stuff, man. And we're so fortunate to have Pete just kind of hang out at Comicsgate, because I think, like, what the hell, dude? You don't need us.
What does that mean?
And you got this shit all worked out, man.
To me, I mean, and I think it's still very much true, but Comicsgate is largely the readership. Yeah. So whether I hang out or not, I don't think I have much of a choice. This is what it is, and I love to be a part of it. And it's the readers. As long as the readers are here, that's where I am. Yeah. So that's what it is to me. And I love the fact that there's obviously creators as well, but we're nothing without the readers. So as long as it keeps on being the way it is, God bless them.
Yes, indeed.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, also Black and White Volume 2 pre-launch page is there. The link is in the description. Go sign up. We are going to go live with the campaign probably second week of August. We still haven't figured it out yet, because there's a lot of Comicsgate books coming out in August. So Ethan told me we're going to have to start trying to figure out schedules.
There's going to be some big.
It's going to be.
I don't have enough money for all this, man.
Everybody's gonna go broke, but yeah, make sure you guys save up for Black and White 2. It's gonna go live in August, and in the meantime, yes, sign up. Every backer will get a free card with a sign up, and also Chrono Mechanics is live. It's in demand. We have books. The books are done, so if you order today, they will go out ASAP, and we are going to close that out the end of the month. We're going to have a big old blowout party, a big Chrono Mechanics shindig, and we're going to see how many more books we can get into people's hands before we shut it down. So thanks to everybody in this live stream. You guys are the best, man. Pontificators is back, you guys. Oh, go ahead.
Can I say one thing? I'm going to do a show tomorrow, and I don't have a lot of YouTube followers. So if everybody's watching tonight, I'm going to have Andy Smith on. I'm going to have Wyatt Holiday on. I'm going to have Brian, who's running his Aerith book. So I don't have a lot of subscribers. So if everybody showed up tomorrow on my YouTube channel, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, cool. And most of us all have YouTube channels. So what's everybody, just a quick round robin, what's everybody's YouTube handle? Comic Book Bob?
Comic Book Bob. Just go there, Comic Bob on YouTube and Twitch.
And of course, Todd Mulrooney's is Art's Lackey. What's yours, Todd? Uh-oh, we lost Todd.
Ignition, get tuned in.
Ignition, get tuned in. How about you, DeWolf?
Oh no, I'm still too junior to have a special channel or show.
Okay, Clint, is yours Clint Helinski?
Yep. Yeah.
I just dropped it.
Okay.
On YouTube, and people are asking what time. It's going to be 8 p.m. Central, so 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow.
Okay, Zach, what's your YouTube handle?
Mine is literally just Zach Bradley.
Zach Bradley. And Pete, what's yours? How can people find you?
You just do youtube.com/alternativecomics or youtube.com/Peter Simeti.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. So thanks, everybody. This was great. Thanks to Philip as well. He had to bail early. And thanks to Jason Krieger. I don't know what happened to him. He just kind of bounced out. And thanks to everybody in the chat. You guys are the best. Comicsgate rocks. And thanks for the super chats, you guys. We will see you next week on Wednesday. We are going to keep this party crazy, and the Pontificators is going to keep rolling. So you guys have a wonderful what's left of tonight, and we'll see you soon. Take care.